All right, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call our December board meeting our regular board meeting to order. And Ms. Markham, just as a point of notation, I believe this is Mr. Kaltenbach's 216th regular board meeting. So thank you. First item is the approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The agenda is approved. Moving on to item number 4. Mr. Moreland didn't remember being on the agenda, so we have Mr. Kaltenbach to lead us in the pledge, to be followed by a moment of silence.
Good evening. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everybody. Moving on to item number 6, approval of the special board meeting of November 16th. Are there any corrections? Hearing no corrections, I'll entertain approval as presented.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded by Mr. Ramirez. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to item number 7. Mr. Kaltenbach.
Yes, Mr. Straight.
You know, I've had the pleasure of working with you the longest of the board, and I admire you. I thank you. I admire you for everything you've done for West-MEC. You've been on the board 16 years that I've been here, plus 2 years ahead of me. You've served District 2 well. You've served all of West-MEC well. You've served our students well. I think back, the only building West-MEC had was the one we were renting at 4949 West Indian School. And we've grown, and you've helped, and your insights as a teacher have made, and an educator have made such a huge difference. And for me, it's been an honor and a privilege to work with you. And I want to thank you for not only your service, but making me a better board member and making us a better board.
Thank you.
And on behalf of that, we do have, and I am going to let everybody else talk as well, because I think a few people also want to say some words. I do have a few things for you. We have a plaque.
That's good. Plaques are good.
Everybody gets a plaque, right?
I think that's trophy, but all right.
Well, and your sense of humor, but it recognizes your...
Should I stand up? I feel like
Yeah, because Chris Cook, I think, wants to take pictures. So, on behalf of the staff and the board, I'm recognizing your 18 years of service.
Thank you.
Also, yeah, I couldn't open it.
I think I can win. I'll win. Keep going. Talk.
Okay. You know, it's really hard to say what's appropriate for 18 years of extraordinary service. And so that's why we have several things for you.
Well, that's really cool. Thank you. I have to read it?
I can read. Yeah, read it.
Oh, I'm getting older. West-MEC, our district is stronger, our community is brighter because of your service and leadership. James Kaltenbach, 05 to 22. So, thank you.
And on behalf of the staff, because it's not just students, not board, it's not the community, but it's also the staff. We have a business card holder and pen, as well as a gift card and some sentiments from the staff as well.
Thank you very much.
And then also, on behalf of the
Stuff.
board, this is for you.
Thank you.
And finally, we know that you haven't done this on your own. Like you met, for those of you who were here at 3:30, it's not just Mr. Kaltenbach. His time, when he's here, is a sacrifice to his family. And so, on behalf of your family's sacrifice and your kids' sacrifice, we have some flowers for your wife, which I think she is
Yep. Right there.
here.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then, moving on, anything else we need to do, Mr. Cook?
Thank you for asking that. If you could hold the plaque.
Hold up the
Oh,
phone.
I put it back. We're gonna have to take it out of the plastic.
It's always the guy with the camera.
So I should shake your hand.
You want to do that one? We can do that
Yeah.
one. There we go.
There we go.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
And then last item, where's my agenda? So before we move on to item number 8, I'm gonna let the rest of the staff talk, and then we'll move on to that. So
Sounds good.
I will just, we'll start with Mr. Miglerino and just work around the circle.
Y'all know how bashful I am, and I don't get up very often to talk, but you know what? This time I want to get up because I want to thank this guy. Rebecca, I think we've only met maybe once, but she's the one that's paid a heck of a price too. All of you out there, all of our students, all of our parents, and our community are better off because of this guy. As a relatively new board member 7 or 8 years ago, I knew very little. I knew some things because you all know I have a history. This guy, he was and still is invaluable. Can't be beat. And I just personally know what it takes inside and what Rebecca had to give up and the kids for him to do that. So just on behalf of myself and the other members of the board and the people who aren't here, James Kaltenbach, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
You don't have to do the
I mean,
Precedent has been set,
yes,
right?
yes, exactly. Well, I'm the newest board member, as you all know, but again, I'm very grateful for the time and the talks we've had, conversations we've had after the meetings, and you've imparted a lot of knowledge, and I see how much you love the school, the students, your work, and it's truly inspiring, honestly. So I really appreciate that, and I hope to be half-as good and knowledgeable as you are. So thank you for all your years of service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
Okay, it's my turn. Okay, I'm the second. I've been with you the second longest. You're first, I'm second. And one of my grandsons did go to school
Yeah.
and learned how to weld. He's still welding today.
We didn't hurt him.
And I was taking Brendan back and forth too, and I got to go in and see the classrooms, see how he works, and did it. And it was great. I have to say, he always was able to bring the rest of the story to this board because he's inside. And he helped all of us. We all gained. All the students gained, West-MEC gained, but most of all, I think the board gained from your insight. We love you.
Thank you.
I'll miss you.
Thanks, buddy.
Mr. Kallenbach, thank you very much for your service. Thank you. I won't stand up and come to you, but I just want to tell the staff and my fellow board members, I remember you a long time ago inviting me into your classroom, and even though I have my 6th through 12th grade teaching certificate. I never went into a 12th grade or high school classroom because I know how difficult it is and the challenges you have. And you are exceptional with students. And I think the students and Peoria Unified and West-MEC really thank you. And I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All right. I am going to take the liberty of presenting these to
Oh, yeah,
your
sounds
wife.
Well, we're just gonna take all of this over there, that's where it's going.
Thank you for sharing him with West-MEC. We are very grateful that you're all.
No, yeah.
There's a lot, 18 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. Good job.
And I will close out with one story that probably most people don't know about Mr. Kaltenbach. It wasn't long after I started serving on the board, I went to drop my, I want to say 6th grade daughter off at church. And there was this guy sitting on the floor playing with 6th grade kids. And it was Mr. Kaltenbach. And so he not just serves our community here, he serves our community at our church. And we actually still serve together in the high school program. So just know that this guy has a heart of service, and I know he's very humble about some of the stuff he does, and I really appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
So, thank you again. And with that, I'm going to move on to item number 8. You know, Ms. Wiley, you mentioned Mr. Kaltenbach is a wilding teacher. And as we looked at 18 years of service, and one of the things we wanted to do is, what can we do to honor and recognize Mr. Kaltenbach for your passion? And so that's where we have the motion before us to rename the welding program facilities after the James Kaltenbach Welding Center. And so I would like to place that in motion. As chairman, I think I still can create a motion. Usually I don't, but I would like to do that because of who it's for, and I would entertain a second.
Mr. Chairman, will there be some kind of naming or something that?
So thank you for asking. We do have a visualization of what this will look like. So
Thank you.
if you guys want to pass that down, and then we can give it back to Mr. Kaltenbach. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Yes.
I remember as a kid, in my elementary school, I don't know, first, second grade, there was a plaque. And our playground was right near the main entrance of the school. There was a bronze plaque, and I used to look at all the names, right? And of course, you know, that was back in the 70s, so all the names in Wyoming would have been long dead white people, but it, like, all the names, some guy named Ames, I remember that, and I just thinking, like, who are these people that they got their name on this, what were they doing, right? And I continued to do that. I know one of my dad's colleagues eventually was on the University of Wyoming Board of Trustees, so like their name is on various buildings, and I'm like, I know that guy, right? And that's kind of a cool thing. And then Jim Brown voluntold me into doing this, and now our names are on buildings all over the West Valley. It's kind of cool. This reminded me of the story when they first built when we first opened the Northeast campus. There was some murmuring around. They were very worried that the bronze plaque makers were going to misspell Kaltenbach because, you know, people put K's on the end and whatever else. And then they put the plaque up, and they got my name right, and they had spelled Donovan wrong. So they got to remake the plaque, but this is kind of funny. So it's always a kind of a heady thing to get your name on a building. It's kind of a weird deal. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm gonna abstain.
Yes, Peter. All right,
Thank you
motion
very much.
passes with one abstention. All right, current events. Dr. Spurgeon.
Thank you, Mrs. Straka. Just want to talk through a few things that have happened since last we met. We've given a few tours at our campuses. One of the ones that I'm very excited about, we made a connection with NASCAR. And Lucas DeJong and Jonathan Stone did a tour of our Northwest campus. And we see some exciting things coming out of our NASCAR relationship to help promote our power sports program and our automotive program to get our students more actively involved with some of the things that NASCAR does since they're right in our backyard. So very excited about that. Done a couple of several chamber events. Most exciting out of those events got a chance to meet some of our new legislators. One was the Surprise Chamber of Commerce. The other one was the Southwest Valley Chamber of Commerce Legislative Breakfast. So got a chance to meet some of our new legislators heading down to the Capitol here pretty soon. We've had a couple of open houses at West-MEC, and then some of the other meetings that I'm excited about. We held our annual workforce meeting on the Southwest campus this past week, and it was very well attended with putting workforce and kind of the resources together with CTE, so excited about that. I was able to be a part of a new video that's going to be coming out pretty soon through Glendale, the city of Glendale, their economic development. They're going to be promoting e-gaming or e-sports coming up just prior to the Super Bowl, and so West-MEC and CTE is going to be a little part of that video they put out, gearing up for the e-sports and gaming industry. Our team had a chance to meet with Dr. Bales from Paradise Valley to work on strengthening our relationship and expand our opportunities in Paradise Valley, which I thought went very, very well. We've got some meetings that are going to be set up after the first year with their high school principals, get some feedback from each one of those individuals to see what we can do about improving our partnerships. We met with Catherine Seselak, which is the Maricopa County Community College Director of Dual Enrollment, looking for ways for us to be able to expand our dual enrollment opportunities for our students. As you may or may not know, last year alone, our students received 3,575 college credit hours on our central campuses, which is fantastic. I met with Roger Shepard and Barbie Bennett from the Cleveland Electric Laboratories. And Mr. Shepard is going to be the new president of the National Tooling and Manufacturing Association. And he's invited me to be a part of a 4 or 5 person panel when they have their chief financial officers or CEOs and their human resources folks at about a 200 person event where he is installed as their new president. And this is involved in our CNC manufacturing program. So I'm going to get a chance to throw some ideas out with those folks, potentially setting up opportunities for us to keep that classroom full of a classroom teacher, which we haven't had for a couple of years. Met with City of Buckeye with Brian Wright and others, looking for ways for us to continue the conversation around what I call a medical mecca, which is in and around the Verrado Way and I-10, where Banner Health and Abrazo West will be coming in here in the next couple of years. So we're looking to do some partnerships there as well. And then lastly, we had some good news. We had an award given, and I want to read this word for word. It says, "We are excited to announce that the Student Service Department was awarded the ACTE Counseling and Career Development Division Innovative Program Award for West-MEC Counselor Grant Program. The West-MEC Counselor Grant launched in the 2013-2014 school year and continues to grow each year. The West-MEC Student Services Department, with the support of its district leadership, designed and institutionalized this innovative program on par with existing teacher externship opportunities for instructors. The program builds rapport and relationships with our counselors from member districts, charter, and private schools. It provides an opportunity for West-MEC team to support counselors as they grow in their knowledge of CTE and West-MEC's 29 program offerings. Through this knowledge, our counselors are equipped to guide students to the right student for the right program. We recognize that data supports that our counselors are an integral part of promoting the growth of our programs, and as a result, the Counselor Grant Program has proven its worth as an innovative program within our district. Congratulations. So I'd like to call Marilyn up at this time and present her with a little certificate for her great work and all of her great employees and professionals that do a great job. So Marilyn, congratulations for all your great work.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate this. If you'll say a few words about this.
Thank you. So, yes, we were so pleased to get this award. So it's an innovative program. So many times I've spoken to the board about this program that we've had for 9 years, and we have a grant program for our member district counselors to participate in, to go above and beyond in the area of CTE and recruitment of students, and really just their own personal career development. So Spronza Cleese and April Tyrell in my department wrote it up. Shelley Tom is very integral in ACTE and this guidance world that we have, and together we all thought, well, this would be a great innovative program. So we were so blessed to have received this last week. So thank you for your continued support of being able to let us fund this grant for the counselors who are doing an excellent job getting students in our program. So thank you. We're really excited.
Congratulations. Well, thank you. Any board members, anything to report? Yes, sir.
Got an opportunity to go to the national ACTE, NAAE, and I don't know all the different alphabets. National CTE conference 2 weeks ago, I think it was, in Vegas. It was a good time. Ag teachers showed up record numbers. It was a record for ACTE, kind of back from out of COVID and going at it. Always a good time for teachers getting to know new information. I will share with the board, those of you who are still around, ACTE is always the last week of November, first part of December. And this coming year, the ACTE conference and all the satellite conferences is going to be held here in Phoenix, down at the convention center and ancillary buildings. So it would be an awesome time for all of you to get to get to see a little glimpse of it without having to do the whole show. So that's happening next year. So get out your calendar right now, Barbara.
And I was able to meet their executive director, so we have several folks from our West-MEC team on their planning committee. So we're hoping they get a chance. I offered her the opportunity to come out even a little early to do a pre-walkthrough. And so we'll have several West-MEC facilities available for tours and things like that as that conference comes to Phoenix.
Yeah, so that's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Anything else? Anybody else? All right. Consent agenda, item number 10. Since we can't, is there anything anybody wants to pull? Hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved as presented.
Second. Moved and seconded by Jim and Jim. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right, swearing in new members, Mr. Miglerino, I believe you're here to swear me in, and then I will swear in Juan. And I think that's the only ones. Repeat after me.
State of Arizona, County of Maricopa, Frank Straka, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of the state of Arizona?
I do. I'm supposed to. I'll read it.
Okay.
Sir. I think I'm supposed to repeat it, right?
Yes.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
So. All right, raise your right hand. Well, you're supposed to tell me. So, like, repeat after me and like one sentence at a time.
Whole sentences? Okay,
Or whatever you think I can remember, my brain.
go ahead. State of Arizona, County of Maricopa, I,
State of Arizona, County of Maricopa, I, Frank Straka,
James Miglerino,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the State of Arizona,
and the Constitution and the laws of Arizona,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and impartially discharge the duties of the office of board member, West-MEC number 402,
and that I will impartially discharge the duties of the office of board member, West-MEC number 402, according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ramirez.
Do you have my copy? Because I don't.
I'm just gonna, just
I'm not
repeat
good
after me.
Okay,
I'll try to keep it.
keep it very short.
So please raise your right hand and repeat after me. State of Arizona, County of Maricopa,
State of Arizona, County of Maricopa,
I, and state your name,
I, Juan Ramirez Jr.,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and the Constitution and laws of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies,
and defend them against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of the office
discharge the duties of the office
of board member, West-MEC number 402,
of West-MEC Board Member 402,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, sir. Welcome back. All right. And the reason we do that this month is when you're sworn in, you can't vote on anything for 24 hours. So if we waited till January, all the new board members wouldn't be able to vote on anything. Little fun fact that's useless. But if you're a state legislator, you can vote right away.
So I can't vote for anything today?
Not for the new, you can vote for today because you were sworn in through December.
Got it.
But we had to swear you in today for the January meeting.
Got it.
And the new board members in January,
They're already being sworn in. We swore in Mr. Garcia at 3 o'clock, and Ms. Buzzum will be sworn in later this week at the county.
thank you for that information.
All right, call to the public. Ms. Markham, do we have anyone call to the public? Anyone would like to address the board? All right, I will move on to item number 12. Mr. Williams, I see you're getting ready.
Getting ready.
Legislative and business partner update.
Good afternoon, Chairman Straka, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Spurgeon. Thanks again for the opportunity to provide a brief update on business development efforts and legislative items impacting West-MEC and CTE. Congratulations again to our new and returning board members. And again, just because I have the mic at the time, Mr. Kay, thanks again for your service and for your dedication to students and to CTE. Under the legislative banner, the election update, each day presents a new twist. Lawsuits have been filed, hearings are being had. That said, the state canvass of the general election was held December 5th, and the results have officially been certified in that capacity, with three contests qualifying for automatic recount, that being the Attorney General, Superintendent of Public Instruction, State Representative for LD 13. As it stands now, these hearings will likely coincide and even carry beyond what's currently scheduled for the 24th Governor of Arizona, set to be sworn in January 2nd, again with many of those legal challenges likely extending beyond that date. So stay tuned is the moral of the story on that one. Real quick, just going through the general makeup of the 56th legislature, I think it's important just to give a couple highlights. I won't go through all of it. But the makeup of the Senate coming in January, 16 Republicans, 14 Democrats. The House being 31 Republicans, 29 Democrats. Senate President Warren Peterson, LD 14. The House Speaker Ben Toma, West Valley, right here, LD 27. And a couple of committee assignments that I think are worth noting. In the Senate Committee, Appropriations, Chair Senator-elect Kavanaugh, and Senate Education Committee Chair Senator-elect Bennett. And on the House side, Appropriations Chair, Representative David Livingston, again, here in the West Valley, and proudly our very own Education Chair, Representative Beverly Pingarelli, also here in the West Valley. So it's great to just see the West Valley leadership taking shape in the legislature, and again, statewide advocacy is the role, but it's nice to have those West Valley voices in those leadership positions. As Dr. Spurgeon shared, we had a couple of legislative events in the last week or two, hosting one of those at our Northwest campus. The Surprise Regional Chamber hosted a kind of get to know your elected officials event on December 6th. And as part of that, outgoing or retiring Arizona Senator Rick Gray received the Chamber's Spirit of Free Enterprise Award, which was a nice part of that program on that day. We also attended the Southwest Valley Chamber Legislative Breakfast hosted at Estrella Mountain Community College on December 7th, where we had a chance to meet a couple of the new freshman legislators that will be there, which some good conversations, and especially around CTE, were had. Under the Business Development and Engagement banner, I'm excited about reconvening the Superintendent's Institutional Advisory Commission. We will reconvene that advisory group December 20th, and this is really a commission that is a cross-section of decision makers, leaders from education, economic development, business and industry, and we pull them together to really advise our superintendent and leadership on how West-MEC can continue to be out in front of workforce needs, talent demands, those collaborations and partnerships as the West Valley continues to be experiencing such growth. So we're excited about that, and that again will take place December 20th. We'll convene that group twice a year, and again, I think it'll provide for some rich conversation about how West-MEC is a critical role in those partnerships. I shared last time that West-MEC had applied for the A for Arizona Transportation Modernization Grant, about $1.9 million to implement a CTED transportation model that would increase access for all students to West-MEC Central programs. I was hoping to have final news to share with the board today. I do not, however. They scheduled me for tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, so I'll have to include that in a weekly report for the board, and hope to be able to share good news with that. I think it's an important topic, and we hope to be able to use that grant funding to really pilot a quality transportation model and what that would look like for CTEDs.
Over 2 years, right?
Over a 2-year period, yes. And lastly, as Dr. Spurgeon alluded to, esports and gaming, it's something that I've not fully wrapped my head around. My 8-year-old son is all in. But it's really, the city of Glendale is billing this as part of all of the January Super Bowl activities in the city. And they're hosting a esports, advancing esports conference in January, and we're actually hosting that here in the city of Glendale. So they took an opportunity to interview our superintendent as part of their promotional material for that. And the natural connection to CTEDs is because there's this competitive esports side of it, and then there's the game design, software development, cybersecurity side of it. So there's a lot of transferable skills in that space that could tie to coding, cybersecurity, IT security, and game design for not just our central programs, but many of our satellite programs as well. With that, I stand for any questions or comments. If it's about esports, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to help, Mr. K.
No, this is about physical space.
Okay.
Are there people parking in a parking lot at Northeast Campus yet?
No. So we are, and I can lean a little bit on Mr. Heath or Dr. Erb, but we are really at the mercy of some of the city codes and some last minute requests for the easement and some drainage in that area to get that done. Parking lot is paved, the lines have been painted, I just saw it today, but it's the access from Williams that we're in the final stretch. Did I capture that correctly?
Of course.
Yes.
What would we ever do without a board meeting, or we did not have to look at the parking lot at the Northeast Campus and find out it was further delayed.
Yeah. I can't wait, and I'll
Years.
send you a special
Long
note
before
to
you
let you know when that's
It's
done.
your tax dollars in action.
Yeah, isn't that pathetic?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks. 3 years in the making, literally.
Good job.
Thank you,
Thank you.
CJ.
Appreciate
If nothing else. All right, Ms. Shelley Dome. Exceptional Student Services Update.
That doesn't surprise me, thank you. Just a minute while Darren loads the slides. Another lefty. There we go. All good? Yeah, thank you, Darren. All right, technology solved, just for the moment. Well, good evening, Governing Board members, Superintendent Dr. Spurgeon, and Governing Chair Straka. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about exceptional student services here at West-MEC and tell you about some of the amazing things that we're doing as a team and how we're supporting all students in their success. So today we're going to give you a little overview. We're going to be able to talk about our ESS team and meet them at least virtually on the screen of different members of our team and talk about some data in all of our programs, and then also be able to tell you a little bit about some of our specialty programs that we have. So to tell you about our ESS team, we're going to start with those here as our Exceptional Student Services team. So I'm very fortunate as the Director of Exceptional Student Services to work side by side with Jason Croft and Paige Quinn. They're our Exceptional Student Services Teacher Liaisons. It's a mouthful, but they are amazing in supporting our students and our staff. They are housed 2 days a week at each one of our campuses. So you'll see that Jason goes to our Northeast and Northwest campuses, where Paige supports our Southwest and Central campuses. And really, in their roles, they are the essential link to student success through the teacher. They are completely teacher-facing supports, but the work that they do with the teachers and the rest of our staff helps support that success of our students. Their work is many detailed things. I'm just highlighting a few for you, but it is a wonderful thing that we can say that Office of Civil Rights has actually talked about our enrollment and application process for West-MEC is acclaimed as one of the most equitable ones they've seen. And part of that is the applications when students apply are blind, in that they do not indicate whether or not they have an IEP or 504 services, so we are unaware of any disabilities when they apply. We want every student to be considered on the same criteria without any concern that there's a bias there. So that's a wonderful, wonderful way to apply, but after they get to us and they've been allocated seats, we want to make sure we are stepping in and doing whatever supports that they need. So part of the role of our ESS team, including our ESS teacher liaisons, is that we actually reach out to every single school and verify for every one of the students applying for West-MEC whether or not they have special education or 504 services. Those students will mark it on their enrollment forms after they've been given a seat. We double check because surprisingly people mark that wrong on a pretty regular basis. So we do reach out to schools and verify it for all incoming, and once we find out if they have an IEP or 504, we then collect that information and we sit down and spend quite a bit of time reading all of the documents to find out what supports that they need here at West-MEC. One of the next strategies we use that has been a promising practice that I'll give you a little bit of data in just a moment on is we've started doing bridging meetings in the last couple years. And this is a wonderful opportunity after we've reviewed their IEP or 504 when they've been admitted to the program. If we notice that their accommodations or modifications aren't well aligned to our industry credentials, that we have no control over what kind of accommodations they'll get on that. We can advise, but we can't control that. Or if it's not well aligned to what the industry would expect of them, we call and reach out to the home school that they're from and ask to have a bridging meeting. And that's great collaboration for the student, the parent, the high school team, and us to talk about, first of all, their seat is secure. This is not to ask them to leave the program in any means, but rather to plan for success. And so we talk about how maybe there's a little bit of misalignment and maybe some other strategies that could support the learner in their success, not only in the program, but as they head towards credentialing and out in career. And it's been a wonderful practice, and I can't wait in a couple slides to show you the data on that too. But that bridging meeting is partially fulfilled through our ESS teacher liaisons, but we also have the great support of our campus counselors and sometimes campus administrators, depending upon the needs at these meetings. And then to make sure that our teachers are feeling incredibly prepared before the school year starts, our ESS teacher liaisons, accompanied with our campus counselors, sit down and meet with every teacher and review the IEP or 504 with them to see what supports and strategies are needed in the classroom so that they feel prepared before the first day of school to meet the needs of those students. And so those meetings are incredibly important before school starts. We also do that at the beginning of second semester to kind of refresh the memory, if you will. And then throughout the year, as updates come in place from the school, we will go over that with the instructors as well. And then our ESS teacher liaisons are an essential link through our multi-tiered system of support. We often call that MTSS because it's a mouthful. But MTSS is a district-wide process to support all students, regardless if there's a disability or not, being successful in their program. And that is a joint effort of ESS teacher liaison, the campus administrators, the campus counselors, and the instructors to be monitoring if they start to see change in patterns of a student. The attendance is starting to look a little concerning, the grade is starting to slip, or other factors might be at play. We actually monitor that, have meetings and talk about what are those barriers, how do we support them in working through those barriers, and are watching great success come out of that. And that's a year-long process. And then one of the major roles of our ESS teacher liaisons is to provide that support directly to our instructors for differentiated instruction. So they're on the campuses and they're weekly in the classrooms with the instructors to be able to observe students, see any learning barriers they can observe, provide some supports on how they might differentiate that instruction to meet the learner's needs while still maintaining the integrity of the curriculum, and help co-teach or model some sort of a process for that student with the teacher. But again, it's all teacher-facing for these individuals. So great areas that they're touching on to support all of our learners. And just to give you an idea of how well we're supporting all of our learners throughout West-MEC as a whole, is some data here through our wonderful Diane Parsons, that's our data analyst, has been able to provide us a 3-year trend on earning of the industry-ready credentials. And those are what we consider the required and preferred. If you look at the chart, the students in blue are all of our students as a whole. Orange is students with IEP or 504, so those with a disability. And then the gray is non-IEP or 504 students, so that we can look through. As we look at a 3-year trend, first of all, we're seeing, as you've heard in many board meetings before, our West-MEC students are doing amazing things, and our teachers are helping prepare them for those credentials. And our career coaches are doing wonderful things to remove barriers for them getting to those credential exams. But as we look at it, we can see that over the years that our ESS students who are receiving services are staying on par with all other students in earning those credentials. So those things that we're doing and the great work of the teachers are helping those students achieve that criteria to be able to be work ready at a similar rate to all other students. And then as I mentioned earlier, we have bridging meetings. So we had, again, some great data because we love our data. But as we looked at our data of students in this first semester of last year that had, the blue is students without disabilities, orange is those with disabilities, and the gray is students with the bridging meeting specifically. We look at it, and because our data for West-MEC is so strong, it's hard to see subtle differences because everything is strong, where we have attendance up above 90% for all students. But if you look at that, our students with bridging meetings inched a little bit higher than that. And then when you look at retention, again, wonderful retention, hard to see changes, but we had 100% of retention of students that had bridging meetings. There's many contributing factors, and I think really part of it is the heart of it all. When you meet with students and have 2 teams come together and say how we're supporting them and help them see what those expectations are and how you're going to help them envision those expectations, great things happen. Mr. K?
What percent, this is the whole district data?
Yes.
What percentage of our whole district students are ESS?
Can you give me like 2 more slides?
Sure.
Okay. I'll show you that trend too. That's a great question. And actually, I guess 1 more slide. So gave you a 3-year enrollment data. So if you look on the left side, it's the last 3 years. On the right is our percentage of our entire population that are served with IEPs or 504s. And you'll see that we continue to climb in that percentage, that this year we have 14% of our students are receiving services under an IEP or 504. We're not surprised that the numbers have grown. We are no longer the best kept secret in the West Valley. Many schools and families in our community are realizing that when students come here, they're successful, not only here, but in later life. And that's no different for students with disabilities. And so we're not surprised by those numbers. Nationally, the average at any school, just naturally occurring IEP and 504 numbers would be 10 to 15%. So we're right in that sweet spot of that too. So we have not shied away, and our blind application process definitely hasn't posed a barrier in any way for our students to enter our programs. And then one last thing I wanted to share with you on our ESS teacher liaisons is we feel it's really important to continue those great communications and relationships with our high schools. And really, it's the people at the school that are talking about West-MEC, they're encouraging students to apply, and they see those students day in and day out and realize their passion to be in our programs. So this year we created something called the ESS Roadshow. So we are taking ESS information to them, and we've tailored it to be either 30, 60, or 90 minutes for them, depending upon what their staff needs. Our ESS teacher liaisons and I made a goal this year in our tactical plans to have at least 5 schools take us up on coming out and presenting great information about how CTE and ESS work together and specifics about that blind application process and supports at West-MEC. Already, we've had 7, and we have 3 more scheduled in January and a couple more that are still working on figuring out dates. So we have crushed that goal, much like our students have crushed the goals with credentials and attendance. So we are doing great things to make sure that partnership continues. If you don't mind, I'll go through all of it and answer any more questions unless you just want to pop in. But now that we've talked about how we support students in our central programs, I wanted to share one of our 2 specialty programs within ESS as well. And that's, the first one's Project Search. And this is a young adult program serving students who have graduated high school, who have a significant disability that would be a barrier to employment. And Project Search started with us in the early stages in 2012 under the leadership of Cliff Michael, as we looked at how we could bring this program into West-MEC, and we started our journey back then. And Glendale Renaissance is our longest standing program for Project Search. Colleen McClune is the instructor there and has been there since day 1 of that program opening at that location. And she supported in her work with the students with Lintasha and Leslie, who are our job coaches. They do amazing work to see all these smiling faces. This is this year's cohort over at the Renaissance. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the program in a minute, but I want you to see the faces of everyone we're impacting here. We also have a Sanmar location, which is a distribution center in Avondale, just a few minutes away from here, really. Think about Amazon, but just for apparel, and that's really what Sanmar is. This year, our 2 staff members are both new to us. We have Mindy Cook, who's the instructor, and Doug King, who's our coach over there. Again, doing amazing things with these wonderful students at Sanmar. Project Search, as I mentioned, is a unique program in that it works with young adults who have graduated high school who would have a disability that could be a barrier to employment. Project Search is actually an international organization with a very specific curriculum and a fidelity model that we have to follow and build around. And their whole goal is to have competitive employment for our students in an integrated setting. Across the bottom, you can see how far-reaching Project Search itself is with, at the time I submitted this, because the numbers change almost daily, 718 sites across 10 countries and 48 states here in the US. So we're part of a big, wonderful network. But Project Search is really a business-driven transition to work model. Everything happens within that business setting. They do not come to a West-MEC facility. They don't sit in a traditional classroom at all. They have morning meetings where they do some curriculum and learn skills about money management, technology, self-advocacy, and much more. And they work side by side with employees out in the business, individually setting. We are not sending groups of them into places. They're working independently with other business employees. And the businesses we work with are truly our partners. Not only are we in their business, but they are helping us with implementation of rotations, identifying new places for our students to work. There are advisors on our advisory council, along with Voc Rehab and our state office for Project Search, and other businesses that we don't have a program in still come in, much like our other advisory councils, have businesses all over the place that come support us to help make sure we're doing the best thing for these students.
Don't think business people often hire our kids? I had the wonderful opportunity with Mrs. Wiley to tour.
Yes.
It was just amazing. The kids were amazing and the employers were amazing.
Yes, they are. There is no guarantee of employment at that host business at the end of the year, but every year we have a couple, 2 or 3 at each site that are hired generally. They fall in love with them, they come to graduation and they cry about the thought of losing our employees with them. So it's amazing what we can do with them.
You know, Mr. Miller, I had a chance to visit both of our programs not too long ago. And at the Renaissance, they go from making cafe lattes at the cafe, to
Laundry room.
laundry rooms with tablecloths and towels, to learning everything that there is to know about the food industry at the Renaissance. And they just do such a wonderful job. I mean, they have their own setup. I mean, the Renaissance provides us our own space and a learning space for their classroom. And then the Sandmore is just unreal. If you've never been to Sandmore, it's like Amazon on you know, whatever you want to say. But every student has to learn their own language as it relates to pulling and stuffing and bringing all the boxes. Every student has to learn how to make the system work. And it was just, I was blown away. And our students do such a great, just such a great job.
We'd happily take you on a tour anytime. We'd love to. This is just some of the criteria of our programs, that it's completely workplace immersion. Typically, we work with individuals 18 to 28, and they've all had to have graduated high school. The 1-to-4 ratio of staff to student is key to being able to have them working out independently in the business, but still being able to circle around to check on them and give in-the-moment redirection to be able to be that model employee. You'll see on the screen that we also have Luke Air Force Base listed here. We have for many years enjoyed having a partnership with Luke Air Force Base. This year we had to go on hiatus because of lack of number of interns, but we plan to come back next year bigger and more rotations, and we're starting meetings in that process now to make sure Luke comes back on board.
And Dr. Spurgeon, if they bring that program back on board, trust me, that's the one you want to go on, huh, Barbara? Because you come up to the F-13 or whatever it is, and I'm as close to that airplane as you. And there's one pulling out by Mr. Williams, and the hair on your back just goes straight up. But once inside, they loved our kids. The kids were loving their job, and they were doing a great job of mentoring.
We have several interns that have now been hired out at Luke Air Force Base as well. One of the big things about Project Search is it's an unpaid internship, so the money that they're earning is actually the skills that they're getting. And so that's why we'd like to be their first job, because once you've been out earning money, first of all, it's hard to come back and not earn money, but also it's hard to say that you really need our support if you've already been doing it. But Project Search considers a successful completion is an intern being employed at least 16 hours a week in an integrated setting of disabled and non-disabled peers, making at least minimum wage. And so when we look at that criteria from this last cohort, we had over 73% of the students meeting that criteria already. If you look at employed, which has a slightly different criteria, is 82.6%, and that real criteria difference is 1 hour. Most of the employers are hiring people for 3 5-hour shifts, so we're 1 hour short of getting the 16 hours that Project Search wants. So we're really close. And of that, about 18% that are not employed, those are our students living in Buckeye and Tonopah, where there's no public transportation to get them to work and they cannot earn their own driver's license. So there's still things to be overcome, but not every parent can change their work schedule to take students in to work back and forth. But we're getting closer and closer all the time. This is a long quote. I know that you got to look at these ahead of time, so I'm not going to read it all to you, but we are so lucky to have Betty Schoen, who is with vocational rehabilitation, who's on our advisory, sits in our interviews for our future interns, and she just cannot say enough about Project Search and West-MEC as a whole. She's one of our biggest cheerleaders, and we're very fortunate to have her here on a regular basis with us. I'm saddened to say the one thing I was really looking forward to tonight was to have a parent voice to talk about impact on her and her student. She got called in for overtime and can't make it today, but when I asked if she'd be willing to speak, it took seconds for the response to come to say how excited she'd be to be here. And she talks about the difference for her daughter, who has struggled for many years to find a job interview that'll take her, let alone hire her. And she's now working out in the kitchen at Luke Air Force Base, which was not her rotation. She was actually a Sandmar completer, but her employability skills took her to work there because she eventually wants to work in a bakery. So if we can get her into the kitchen, get some of those skills, she can work into baking eventually. So transferable skills. And then our last specialty program I wanted to mention to you is our TOPS program. This is over at Northwest Campus, and our instructor there is Jennifer Hesse. And then she has 2 coaches with her, which are Sarah and Deb. And all 3 of them, this is their 2nd year of the program, and they've been here since the start with us. Our TOPS program stands for Transition Opportunities and Pre-Employment Skills. And really, it's a very niche program created just with Dysart District. A couple years ago, their special education director reached out and said, we're having a hard time getting good transition for this kind of middle range student. Our higher ranged students cognitively can participate equally in all the West-MEC programs. Our more severe cognitive disability are looking at more living skills more than employment, but this middle group, if they had some good stuff, they might be able to get a job. So we created this program where it's up to 32 students, 16 per section, still keeping a 1-to-4 ratio, much like Project Search. And this is more exploratory, that they'll come out and they get to go and spend about 3 weeks in each one of the programs at Northwest Campus and learn some skills. So they will go down to power sports, which they love, and go to power sports and they are changing air filters, they're changing oil filters, they're learning inventory control. Then they'll go over to dental assisting and learn how to use the autoclave to sterilize equipment. They've got how to do their proper PPEs, taking everything on and off, and much more. They're not going to earn an industry credential for those programs, but they'll learn some skills that they can put on an application and a resume to get them in the door. They could easily go to like a Q-Lube and do oil changes consistently. While they're with us, they're also going to be earning their OSHA 10 certification, food handlers, first aid, and CPR though. So that we have more credentials in their back pocket, even if they don't have a power sports credential, for example. It is very specific to Dysart. It's kind of like being subcontracted to do the program. They're paying for the students, there's supplying transportation, and we get to do all the fun stuff with the curriculum and work with them in the programs. We are looking at whether or not Tolleson is going to join us at Southwest Campus in the future. They've voiced some interest, but there's a few more steps to figure out when you have to figure out calendars and things of that nature to make that work. But a very unique program that again is changing lives just like our Project Search program is. This is our 22-23 cohort over at our location at Tops at Northwest. And then wouldn't want to end without telling you some great stuff you could look at. I'm not going to play the video because of time, but we had the great opportunity, thanks to our communications team, to be interviewed by Fox 10 News to come out to Project Search, and they came to Renaissance and got to interview several of our students in their different job roles. We basically told the interns that they would be interviewed, maybe ask them why they decided to join up, what they've learned, what they like best, and didn't give them words to say at all. Just speak from the heart. If you watch it, it's gonna melt your heart. It's amazing. Some of even the best footage, they clipped some of it. Our young lady Darby that you can see on the screen, first thing she said is that I learned to work with people, and I have anxiety. I've never been well around people. Now I actually look forward to it. And she said she learned a lot about teamwork and leadership as well. So those things that we instill in all of our West-MEC students are being instilled here as well. And then West-MEC as a whole was in our Techniques magazine for ACTE in the February issue about the pathway to equitable access in Arizona's West Valley. And it wasn't only about disability, it was about whether they had housing insecurity, transportation, many different factors that could be facing students and being able to access programs, and how we're doing so much as a district to make sure all students have the opportunity to learn with us. So some great things that you can go look at later if you want to read some more or watch video. I could talk for hours and hours. I tried to keep it as brief as I can, but I'm happy to answer any questions about all the great work ESS is doing with all of our other departments to support all learners and their success.
I would just thank you for your enthusiasm. It comes through in your voice. And it's exciting to see, and before you even mentioned the parent, my thought was what this means to families. You know, their child can go and work and be functional.
I have to share with you the first promotion I went to for this. I try to go every year. After the promotion, two parents, mom and dad, came over to me, and the dad said, I own a construction business. And he said, I can't tell you what this has done for our family. And that's all, he had tears in his eyes. The mother said, I raised her. And if I had to predict what she would be doing as an adult, it would be folding towels in a laundry room. And come to find out, she loves people, she's good with people, she likes to do food, and we had gotten her a job at a cafeteria, school cafeteria. And she said, you've changed our lives. And another one that I met at an audit, and she came in, she was late one day getting there, and she said, this company is supposed to call me, and my son wants to go to work so bad, and I'm having a hard time connecting. I'm sorry I'm late. He's highly educable, but he is autistic. And I looked at her, and I'm I never met this woman. I met her the day before, and I said, have you ever heard of Project Search? And she looked at me and she said, no. And I'm talking to her and I'm telling her about Project Search, and her eyes are getting bigger and bigger. And she looks at me when I got down and she said, do I live in your district? And I said, where do you live? She said, Goodyear. I said, yes. She applied, and you can tell her the rest of the story.
Dan was amazing. He was our Sandmar location, and he did have some struggles sometimes interpersonally with people, but he worked really hard on those and overcame them. And he's now working at TJ Maxx, and he's actually a greeter amongst other things, so his interpersonal skills really came up, and he is loving his job. And I got to go visit him and heard wonderful things from his employer, so.
Yeah, and the mom, I just talked to her not too long ago, and she said, you have no idea how you've changed our lives, the whole family. So it's wonderful, wonderful.
We get spoiled. We get to do a lot of changing lives. We're very
Well,
lucky.
you must see it all the time.
Anyone else?
All right, thank you so much for letting me present the wonderful news.
Thank you and your staff.
Oh, absolutely. They are amazing. I'm fortunate to have them. Thank you very much.
All right, update on campus goals. I think we're gonna start with Central Campus and work around. Troy, do you wanna lead the crew out?
All of us up here at the same time.
All right.
Yeah. So good afternoon, Governing Board and Chairman Straka and Superintendent. So excited to be here with the rest of the fellow campus administrators to kind of go over our campus goals and kind of discuss, what we're going through, what we're doing, and kind of, what other challenges that we have throughout the year. So just kind of an update of what's going on this year. So for Central Campus, our first goal here is to strive to ensure all students have the opportunity to achieve a high-valued credential. Obviously, all of us have that goal to get an 83% for high-value certifications. The next year is to seek active, engaged, and integrated new business partners. What we're trying to do is just make sure that we can get our advisory councils up and running and be bigger and better. So one of the things that we're doing at Central is that we're going to take a PD class to kind of help out the new teachers on how to use advisory councils. What do we use them for? How do we keep in contact? Kind of how do we go through that whole plan, because a lot of our teachers don't have that kind of experience. So we just feel that this is kind of a good time to have this PD so that they can kind of get that experience on how those work. So we're going to do that in February of the beginning of the new year. Next is to seek out opportunities to support employee growth and well-being. A lot of this is just trying to do some, PD and to support the new systems that we have. So Focus is new for us. So we're trying to get these PDs. Go Tracker's new for us. So we're just trying to get as much professional development and training in so that even though we're getting these new systems in place, that these teachers have that support so they can learn how to use those systems and get good at them. So that's one of the things we're just trying to do. So a lot of that is just trying to ease that stress on our teachers. If they've got that training, they've got that things going on, hopefully less stress for them and trying to teach and do what they need to do in class. The next is to celebrate student achievement, leadership, and career development. That is for us, we have done student council before, but we're trying to increase it a little bit more, get more students involved. What we've done this year, and actually last year we started it, is we want students involved in student councils, but we don't necessarily want them to be, for us, to be part of CTSO. So this is kind of like a second tier for us, so to speak. Here's our CTSO board, here they're part of CTSO, they're running all that, so now we want to do is get those other students who are involved in CTSO, but not necessarily members or on, on the board of that, and they're now being involved in student council, helping out with that, and being able to come. We meet every week, I should say every month, and we discuss campus stuff, discuss what they would like to see changes at, what they would like to see, integrated. Can we do this? Can we do that? So it's just a good connection between the students, other students, and admin. One of those other things is displaying and celebrating students on campus. So for us, we call them CTE awards, and we do those quarterly for students who have A's and B's and perfect attendance. We give out these awards just showing them that, that the students are doing a great job and doing what they need to do to succeed in our programs. So next is our progression and celebrations. So we did hold our first CTE awards. First quarter attendance, 49% of our students had perfect attendance on our campus. 96% of students had less, and I missed that, had less than 3 absences. The next goal we had is, one of the things we're trying to do is get this aviation to move more in doing these testing before the program ends. So one of the things that changed with the new aviation certifications is now students can now take their general test after they finish general. They do not have to wait to do the 750 hours of airframe or power plant, so we can test them in there. So the aviation team created a process of we call it prepware, that has all the practice tests. For general, there's 650 questions that they could be asked. So we put that into these prepware tests. Each student has to go through and take all 10 tests, have to score a 95 or better in all these tests before we allow them to take the general test, just to make sure they're ready to go. So we have, students now getting in there and taking those tests, getting ready to take that general test in January. So hopefully this will boost up our certifications in getting those written tests ahead of time and getting that done. Next, we created a newsletter that Mr. Marshall, our assistant principal, has been spearheading, and he's doing this for parents, staff, and students. He's creating this newsletter and sending it out to everybody. Another celebration we had our trunk or treat this year, and part of that trunk or treat we did for Halloween, we also collected cans for St. Mary's, and as you can see, we collected over 1,500 items to give to St. Mary's, so that was a pretty good collection from campus to collect that much stuff for St. Mary's. And that night we had over 500 people who came to trunk or treat, so it was really great, and we just lucked out and had perfect weather. It was perfect weather, everything was good that night, so it was really great having that. This is our second year of doing it, and it just keeps getting better and better every time we do it. Now we're coming to the opportunities that we can have for Central Campus. One of them that we just kind of hit before is these 2-year programs on trying to create incentives to get more students to test. And we're just trying to, and we're discussing it as a campus, is how do we do that? What incentives can we create? What can we do? What movement can we do that says, hey, this is important, let's get this done sooner or later. So we're kind of just going over that, looking at things. The general one is kind of the biggest one we're moving, but we're trying to do it for other programs, and we're just still discussing how we can do that, how we can get students, excited about getting those tests and getting them done. The next is that safe environment for teachers and staff. And as life is going on around us, teachers feel sometimes that are we in a safe environment? Are we protected? Are students protected? And so we're kind of going over that stuff, and with the new safety guy that we have, where we're kind of working through those, going over different things, seeing how we can be better at that. And the biggest thing we're trying to push is making sure our teachers and students feel safe every day when they come to school. So that's kind of one of the things that we're trying to do. It's a great challenge, but I think we're moving in that direction, moving forward and getting that taken care of. Recruitment and retention of staff, that's always a tough one. Hopefully all the stress things that we're doing, trying to reduce less stress for teachers, will keep our teachers on our staff, trying to eliminate as much problems as we can, as many barriers as we can, so that we can get teachers just worried about teaching and not worried about all the other stressful things and all the other hurdles that they have to go over. So we're just trying to do more as an admin staff to make sure our teachers and other staff members are taken care of. Last is open positions. For aviation, we did fill 1 teacher, so we do have 1 teacher for aviation, so that's good for us. We still haven't seen anything for precision. Coding, we did get an application in, so we're looking at that to see if that's a possible move. So, just trying to find qualified instructors has just been killing us for the last year, and so hopefully we can get these positions filled so that we can get these programs up and continue running, because it's just hurting us right now, and with industry being as great as it is, it's just hard to find teachers right now. So before we go to Northeast, any questions? Yes.
Just what's
I would say just being prepared for class, ordering things, the process of getting things ordered, making sure that we're taking a lot of that off their plate to say, hey.
Like the lesson plans and stuff?
No, I'm more looking at ordering for supplies and stuff like that.
Be ready then.
I mean, lesson plans, of course, we have those coaches that are coming in that's helping that stress too, helping them out, doing what they need to do. But I think it is just for me, that stress is anything that we can take off their plate, so all they're worried about what they can do in the classroom.
Gotta keep these teachers.
Yes, and that's the thing right now, is just trying to keep the teachers.
Get 'em.
Yep.
A lot of the tech companies are laying off. Might be an opportunity for coding, like Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah,
They've
Twitter.
all,
Yeah.
but a lot of them have all laid off a lot of technology people.
Yeah, that's what I shouldn't say we're hoping for that, but we're hoping for opportunities for teachers to come.
Hopefully
to
one
us,
of
yeah.
them wants to come.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
Sir. Has anybody from our staff approached you about the land we purchased to the west, what we might do with it and how it might integrate into what we have now?
Nothing about building anything, but we did talk about, we've had a thing going out, we're looking at maybe building a track so that law and public safety will have a safe place to run instead of down the road right now. We're also looking at maybe building something for drones, maybe some drone cages so that we can fly drones next to the airport.
And parking.
Right next to the airport?
Yeah, they can't fly the drones because they.
So we have to build,
I know.
so that's why we're looking at building these cages. They're like 50 feet long, 15 feet tall, so we can fly in those cages without interrupting the airport. So we're looking at some of that stuff, kind of just getting an estimate of what that would cost to do, but building wise, I don't think we've had anything talks about doing a building.
How are you gonna prevent, next thing will be, how are you gonna prevent lasers in those cages from being shone into pilot's eyes or something?
Yeah.
Drones and laser beams, what could be more appropriate?
Yep, so now we fly them now, but we're flying them in the demo lab, so this is just an opportunity for us to have more room to fly them out.
Do we have an adult drone class as well?
No, nope. And usually we try to run at least one program in high school first, so this is our first year with high school, so we're kind of seeing how that's gonna work out, and then next year we'll have 2 one-year classes. If we have a lot of people into it and wanna do it, then maybe it'd be an awesome opportunity for adults, especially if we can get this cage built and everything else. I think it'll open up. Because we do have a lot of people coming in to test for the 107. We do have a lot of that. We probably have 5 or 6 a month that come in to test.
There's a ton of opportunities in this country for drone
Yep.
operators. There's also a ton in foreign countries.
Yeah.
So I just wondered, as we think globally, kids come up, you wanna learn how to fly a drone in France or Brazil? Just a thought.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Troy.
Good evening, President Straka, governing board members, Dr. Spurgeon, thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit of Northeast Campus with you. Mr. Kay, our staff certainly wanted me to express our gratitude to you for your support and your service to West-MEC, so thank you very much. I hope just hit the enter. Awesome. Our campus goals echoing a little bit, certainly, which is a good thing, because we are aligned in echoing a little bit, Mr. Gabolden. 83% of our Northeast Campus students will earn at least one high-value industry credential required and preferred. 80% of our students in all our programs will pass the ADE technical assessment and/or the West-MEC post-assessment. Not all our programs have both assessments. So moving down to instructional focus, we have continued to focus on purposeful chunking and planning and purposeful and intentional assessment as well of critical content. I shared last time with the board after decades of being in the profession, which could be maybe some malpractice on my part, but the epiphany came to me that we kind of have a juxtapose going in, and I feel very proud that I was able to slip that word into this little presentation. But the master brain is connecting everything, and that's what the master brain does, but the novice brain needs it in those digestible bits. So that's what we're focusing on instructionally on our campus as well. And there's a process that's involved with that. It seems like it would make sense and easy to come, but you can keep digging down and really identifying what is critically important for these students to learn today so that they're prepared tomorrow, and we build on that. And then our stakeholder engagement professionalism, again, aligned with district goals and our strategic plan, that every program will develop at least one family engagement activity, not where just parents come in and see the facility and they're wowed by that, and that happens, and that's great, but also engaging in the learning with their student. So that's important. And then every program introducing and utilizing the West-MEC professionalism skills rubric. So we take professionalism beyond punctuality and being prepared, and those are all important, absolutely. We're taking it beyond that and talking about communication skills, leadership, problem solving, and teamwork, which the industry is begging for and continues to tell us that's what they're looking for, students who come in with those skills. Our goal progress, 91% of our NC completers, this is based on last year. Today we just did receive an update through a focus report. So we're at 26% of our students have learned at least one high-value industry credential. In technical content proficiency, we are identifying what proficiency really means on our campus and what does it look like, and we're doing that through pulse meetings. We meet with our teachers and our programs quarterly to talk about proficiency and credentials and other, we're talking about student learning in those meetings and try to avoid the nuts and bolts and logistics and all that, but really talk about students, individual students, learning and how we're measuring proficiency and where are we on credentials, and continue to monitor that as well. Again, our instructional focus is on chunking the content, so through learning walks, and we have a new tool that we'll be implementing, that we're excited to implement in January, that'll better serve our campuses and our teachers. The committee put together a really powerful tool, and I think it's really tailor-made for what we're doing. Formal observations, pulse meetings, again, talking about what do students need to learn today, and how will we know that they learned that today? And being able to document that, not for, well, like asking questions, or I get a sense, or I felt like they did. Do they know that they learned today? So that's critical right there. And then our stakeholder engagement with one family campus engagement touch point. We have 4 out of our 10 programs have already held at least one, have held one program where parents are coming in and joining their students and engaging in their learning. And then every program, we're asking all our instructors to go through that West-MEC professionalism rubric as well, and we're asking to do at least once quarterly. What's evolved from that is the practice of students self-assessing, and that's become powerful as well, and then, or perhaps peer assessing, and then ultimately hearing from their instructor, who's the ultimate voice in that. Our celebrations, all our ASE testing for auto tech, collision repair, and medium and heavy diesel have been scheduled. We've already started that in the past. Sometimes you're trying to figure out when's the best time to do that, and we kind of have left it open-ended, but we're finding out if we've got that scheduled, students are much more prepared and knowing what to expect. And our passing rate, 78% for our first-year students and 76% on their first attempts, and students get 2. Again, 4 out of 10 of our programs have delivered campus touchpoint opportunities. That includes a Auto Tech Information Night where we had over 100 parents and students and over 30 industry professionals, and a Q&A Mr. Golding put together with Mr. Shoemaker and Auto Tech. So really brought parents, students, and industry together and had honest conversation about these are the opportunities that are available to students. It's not this single pathway, but
How did you feel about it afterwards?
very powerful, yes.
Really?
The conversation was powerful. Industry interacting with students, industry interacting with parents, and again, just having industry, so many little conversations, industry, parent, and the student right there having conversation. And talk about these are the opportunities that are available to students. It has opened up so many eyes, and again, just educating our parents and our stakeholders on what those opportunities are. Simulated healthcare experiences as well. Vet Science had an open house, but it's not an open house just to come in again and just see the facility and learn about the program. We've done that already, but actually go through the animal care process with their students and learn, engage in the learning that their students are learning each and every day. Vet Science had a continuing education day where they they basically simulated a professional conference that students would attend with vendors and guest speakers, and parents came to that as well. Multiple community service acts, parents invited to field trips, which is just a nuance to, let's get parents there. So we're sitting at Larry Miller Toyota, and the leadership there is talking about, again, all the pathways, and parents' eyes are just opening up, saying, I had no idea. And then that's just attending a field trip with their student. And NEC, we've started an Engage YouTube channel. So monthly, Mrs. Casillas and I will get on the GoPro and do our thing. Mrs. Casillas tends to ad-lib from the script, so I'm trying to reel her in because I'm very script-oriented. So she's probably rolling her eyes right now as I share that with you. But another celebration, adult education. We just hired our pharmacy technician, adult teacher, Vonda Russell. That's scheduled to start in January, the end of January. We've got Mr. Mike Pyer, a godsend for our AC program, and that has really blossomed. They started October 3rd, and they're very healthy there. Frank Dohan is allowed to, it gives him the opportunity to oversee it, and so we're really in a good place. And if we add a second cohort, we're ready for that. And then continue to look to see if we can make that co-mingle program in the auto collision as well. And then solidifying our partnership with IEC, an electrical trade program where apprenticeship and job opportunities are available to our students. Challenges and opportunities, collecting work-based learning and credentialing through GoTracker. GoTracker is the new system, and so getting teachers and students to make sure we are tracking that and getting accurate reports from that. Staff recruitment and retention, Mr. Gabolden said as well, the well-being of staff is certainly important. We've got a great staff at Northeast. We have great staff at West-MEC. We certainly want to keep great people. Establishing well-articulated career pathways similar to the IEC. We just had a conversation today with AMS and AC, who's interested as well. And I touched base with Mr. Williams, and he'll take that and run and make it happen. If there's something there, he'll make it happen. Credentialing and certification testing, because the programs are so varied. Different needs by different with different programs. So that's both opportunity and a challenge, balancing the various varying program needs and the industry requirements. United focus on the technical content and the high value credentials, and then identifying potential programs. We've had that conversation, great support. IET at Northeast Campus, hybrid and EV program, cybersecurity, just to name a few. And then the growing adult presence with the addition of the pharmacy and hopefully the second AC cohort as well. So snapshot of Northeast Campus, certainly would welcome any questions, but it would appreciate none. So.
Can we park in the parking lot?
The parking lot actually is paved. The entrance is all paved. We're waiting for the wrought iron fence and the gate, but we are requiring anybody who steps foot on there, because it's so immaculate now, to remove your shoes and,
Very good.
and then just walk tenderly across.
And once cars go in, they're going to have to be washed before driving onto the...
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, we cannot have, you've got mud on your wheels, go park somewhere else. That's absolutely, But it is moving, it is moving. But like Mr. Williams said, there's always, it moves and then, hey, you forgot this or forgot that. But McCarthy's been very, very good. They've done a really, really admirable job, and their communication has been much appreciated.
So how many teachers are you lacking?
Right now, I prefer not to speak to that, Mrs. Wiley, because I don't want to jinx it.
All right.
No, we are in a good place. Yes, thank you very much for asking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Medina. 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was 2 minutes.
You want us to ask her all your questions?
Yes, please. Well, you'll get smarter answers as well, so it's a win-win.
You can park in my lot. I have more parking spaces. So, Chairman Straka, members of the board, Dr. Spurgeon, thank you for allowing me to present campus goals for Northwest. With our campus goals, we meet as a leadership team. We kind of put this team together this year, and our leadership team consists of administration, counselor, classified, certified staff members all over our campus to develop these campus goals. All of our goals are aligned to the strategic plan as well as the campus needs. So as you see here, we have a credential goal that is also dependent on the instructor's goal from last year. We want them to either meet or beat. That's what we're looking at. Attendance goals, we still have that challenge of dealing with the time period of, I hate to say it, COVID, where attendance has been really bumpy. We're really trying to refocus on that and get those professional skills back and students in classrooms, because that's where the learning is going to occur.
I don't mean to interrupt, but one of the last slides, we had like 96% missed less than 3 days. But it looks like here it's a much higher number. Can we speak to why, or do we know why one campus is having very different attendance track record, or?
The past 2 years, we've just really seen the attendance, they're missing more school than they should. So taking that focus back and really looking at those COVID absences shouldn't really be there anymore. They still does exist. So really kind of focus and making that emphasis on class and being there and getting to where they need to be. So we still have a really good attendance rate, but the number of absences that are occurring with some students, you shouldn't be missing more than 10 days. I mean, it's just like.
They got used to it from the COVID and they've continued to carry it over because we can.
Correct. Right. Yeah. So we're really trying to put an emphasis on that and having those conversations and really trying to decrease that amount, because that's where the learning's going to occur. If they're not on campus, they're not in the labs, they're not learning and they're not getting the skills that they need. So this is just one of our campus goals, is decreasing that amount for who missed between 6 and 10 days. Usually 10 days within a semester is usually what the state kind of looks at. After 10 days, you have some leniency to either pull credit or that type of thing. It's just like sick days. You got to decide.
Reality.
When you're at work, if you're really sick, are you going to utilize all 10 sick days within that first few months, and then you have nothing out, and then you realize you're really sick and you need those? You're going to lose pay, or you're going to get fired. So those are some of the learning skills that we're trying to work with them. Family engagement is always a struggle, so we're trying to increase the different things that we will do. We'll talk about those things that we are incorporating to increase that survey result at the end. Community engagement, we're wanting more and more partnerships, and we're being able to bring more tours onto campus and bring partners in, which is very important. And then our campus focus is building strong communication and fostering strong staff relationships. That was really important on our campus, is to support each other and make sure that they are growing as well as the students growing. So if we know we care for our staff, we know the staff will care for the students. So it works in that direction. Some of our progress with those goals, currently we have 83% of completers with a valued credential. That is still increasing with some of our programs, especially like with hairstyling, esthetician, that can't test until the state board gives them permission. We are working on that one too, so they can test prior to leaving the program, so that'll increase. Our attendance goals have really gotten a lot better. Kids are in school and learning, which is an important thing. Family engagement activities, bring your parent to work days. We incorporated a campus newsletter. We're doing more campus events, the social media, and connecting in those aspects. The community goals of business partners in the classroom, making sure the students have the actual face time with them, as well as the increased ability of students going out to those businesses with our work-based learning experiences. And then our campus focus area, we're really doing purposeful campus activities. The incorporation of the leadership team, so we can hear from everybody as to what their needs are. We have a student advisory, so we can hear from all the students as to what their needs are. And then increased team building and staff interaction. So every time we meet as a team and as a staff, we do some type of fun activity and team building, which is guaranteed. Some of our celebrations, which are the big things for us, is recently we just did over 100 Thanksgiving baskets for the Homeless Youth Connection. So we filled up the yellow big truck and loaded them all over there, and those were passed out to over 100 families. This Saturday, we're doing backpacks for kids. It's called a Winter Wonderland. Over 600 families will be serviced, meaning 600 families are coming into our campus, into the Lightbox. Backpack for Kids will be allowing families to come in and do Christmas shopping for their students. And then while parents are shopping, we are going to be giving haircuts to students. We're going to be doing coloring items, so parents have some time. We're making ornaments, reindeer food. So the students throughout the campus will be interacting with the students while the parents get to shop. So we have 100 and close to 200 families coming through every few hours. So not all 600 at once, thank goodness.
And that's this Saturday?
That is this Saturday. So Northwest Campus will be very, very busy. Vaccination clinic that we just completed, over 300 vaccinations for cats and dogs that came through. Community was very happy about that. Hair salon is open. They are doing a great job. They've already earned over $6,000 just being open, and those are on services that are, it's a reduced rate. So students are doing the services, so come on in for a haircut, $12. Come on in. We'll be happy to service you. Esthetician salon just opened up, so Mrs. Wiley will be in there in the next week or so, or at least in January, she's gonna get in there. So Dr. Spurgeon loved his
Well, I know, and my
facial not too long ago.
granddaughter told me about that too.
That's right.
Lovely.
Yes.
Almost fell asleep.
We had a Girl Scout troop come in and they earned their automotive badges with our auto students on a Saturday. So they had 3 badges they had to earn, and our automotive students worked with them to earn those badges. This is another big celebration. Our dental students, second-year dental students, 86% of them passed the RHS exam first time taking it. The national average for that exam is 63%. So, and the students that didn't pass the first time are already signed up to retest and should be completed here in the next month or so. So we should have 100% pretty soon. All of our automotive students have earned at least 1 ASE, like Dr. Sworn it. Mr. Sworn, wow.
Doctor is fine, thank you.
You're welcome. Just like Northeast, scheduling those is a tough thing, but it's the experience that they get to have. But every student has earned at least 1, so that's exciting. Counselors receive Donors Choose grants that support our students, so they got different things to supply students with different types of needs of fidgeting, hygiene kits, any type of the emotional supports items. Those have been passed out to students as well. And we've created student-based enterprises in automotive, vet sciences, and power sports this year. And then our biggest thing is we've had a lot of donations come in with our auto vehicles and especially power sports, side-by-side and engines. We recently just signed off on a partnership with Kubota on small engines, and they'll be bringing in their supplies for our students to get more certifications in that area. Lots of hair salon supplies and medical assisting lab supplies. So those are some of our biggest celebrations currently, and more to come. The last thing is kind of the challenges and opportunities, and just like everybody else, I think the biggest thing is recruiting and retaining that full staff to support the campus operations. That allows the students, and especially the staff, to thrive. And that's across the board. It's not just our teachers. We're going into the next season, we're adding programs, so looking into the future, I know we're gonna have to add more staff members. Also, resignations are coming forth as well, so that is going to be a challenge as we look forward to this next school year. Without our teachers, our students are not going to be successful. But that support has to go across the entire board, anywhere from our front office staff to our district personnel. So a full staff is vital. And the last thing is the onboarding of adult education programs. Northwest Campus is in the process. Northwest Campus is in the process of onboarding adult education and is understanding those systems and how they work with a secondary system and a post-secondary system. So that is one of our current challenges. So I stand for any questions that you might have.
Same question. What instructor openings do you currently have, and which ones else do you expect?
Next year we're adding a medical assisting program, so we need to add another medical assisting instructor. I also need another esthetician, or aesthetics instructor, because we're increasing that program as well. I need a nursing instructor as well as a nursing coordinator, which is a very hard position to fill. And currently that is.
The reason it's hard?
Teaching's hard. It is really hard, but it's also, you're dealing with a nursing profession where if you're an experienced nurse, you can set your hours and it's a big salary. But it is also the fact, teaching is very, very hard. They're responsible for doing a lot of things, like taking the things that Mr. Baldwin talked about, taking those things away so they're not having to do that and trying to protect those things. There's still a lot of things that are thrown on to a teacher that is responsible for.
A friend of ours is a recruiter for traveling nurses, and you can make $300,000 a year if you're willing to travel around the country to be a nurse, and they pay for all your hotel and everything. We can't compete with that.
Nursing has a lot of requirements because you're dealing with the State Board of Nursing. There's additional things that they have to qualify for. They have to have a program coordinator. They have to set up clinicals. Clinicals are a requirement within the school year, not after the school year. So there's a lot of additional things that can go along with the nursing program that make it a challenge as well. Any questions? Right.
Mrs. Wiley, just for clarification, though, we do have a vet science opening. We're losing a teacher at semester, but we are covering it internally, so we're grateful to Mrs. Peterson and Ms. Adams for absorbing that, but that will be, we will pursue that. We haven't had any luck up until this point. We'll pursue that this semester and then certainly for next year.
We all realize that if we don't have teachers,
Yes.
we all
Makes it
go
difficult.
home. Yeah. So we have to figure it out. If you've got suggestions, give them to us.
Before I start, I did have a comment about the attendance question. Central Campus has some significant hours-based programming, and you always see high attendance in those programs because they recognize that they require it and they have to make it up. So that could be some of the answer to that question earlier. Beyond that, thank you for allowing me to present for Southwest Campus. Chairman Straka, governing board members, Dr. Spurgeon. I will say we saved South Best for last. Much like you heard with all of the other campuses, we do have a leadership team that sat down and intentionally aligned our goals on the campus with the goals that are put forth by the superintendent's office, which means that my goals will look very similar to the campus goals that you've already seen tonight. We do come together much like Northwest Campus with a leadership team to reflect on what those goals are going to be and how they're best identified or visioned for the Southwest Campus for the people who work out at the Southwest Campus. The goals we have are Southwest will strive to ensure that all students have an opportunity to achieve a high-valued credential. As implied by in the 22-23 completers will achieve greater than or equal to 83% certification on high-value certifications. So this is, one that you've seen across the board at all the campuses. Southwest Campus will seek to actively engage existing and integrate new business partners. This particular goal has ended up being just an extreme focus for Southwest Campus. I'm sure everybody has seen the 303 and what's happening out there, and the number of businesses that we are engaging with on a weekly basis is pretty intense. As a matter of fact, last week we hosted the Arizona Department of Economic Services and the Arizona Commerce Authority and 150 different employers and CTE teachers at a conference out at the campus talking about workforce alignment. Next goal, Southwest Campus will actively seek out opportunities to support employee growth and well-being by promoting the South Best culture. Southwest Campus will seek to provide a safe, positive, and connected learning experience. We do that by focusing on the ERP, Emergency Response Plan, with teachers and integrating our new safety coordinator into that and what we do on the campus operations. Southwest Campus will also seek opportunities to ensure that our West-MEC family, stakeholders, and community feel connected to the Southwest Campus. There are several things that we do in this portion. The newest one, and I thought it was a little more unique, but I've learned recently that it's not, is we have a monthly campus newsletter that we send out, and we integrate all of the other newsletters that happen on our campus into one thing so that people can see what's happening in each other's program, but also it's easier to retrieve so we can see what campuses or what the people on our campus are doing. Some celebrations that we had. This year we've hosted certification events for completers from the 21-22 year. We found that we were deficient in a few of the areas for achieving that 83%, and we decided to extend the offer to those who are exiting our campus. So we hosted little boot camps for completers from the previous year to come back for whatever they encountered to get a second crack at some of those certifications. We saw quite a bit of success in our physical therapy and pharmacy technician programs with them. We adjusted certification plans for IT security to achieve an expected rate of certification. One of the things we found in IT security is that some of the tests we had like a national pass rate of about 50%, and that's for people who are in the industry. A 50% pass rate is pretty hard to achieve an 83% goal with. So we looked at what Arizona Department of Education accepted and added to some of the certification lists so we could get some high-value certifications that are achievable for our students. The soft, and I know my IT security teacher, if he's listening to me, is going to be frustrated, but because he hasn't reported it yet, but we're at 80% in our current year right now with that course, which is very outstanding for that course. I had to throw this in there for my fellow campuses, but we printed South Best Campus t-shirts with a logo that was designed by Chris Cook, and we host a lot of employee things. You know, I talked to the board a while ago that, you know, there's only so many handles that we can turn to maintain and recruit and really keep staff on board, and we've really tried to bring a positive culture and make sure that our staff feel valued and valuable on our campus. We want it to be a place that they like to go, that they enjoy being, because there are other handles that I just can't turn for them. We have signed long-term leases with several external companies, EmployBridge, which is a hiring company, and Yates Construction, which are building some of the sites out at in the Buckeye area. We do this because in the Buckeye area, if you are unaware, there is no lease space available. So whenever a company is looking to move out there, they usually come with a cadre of like their initial people, construction people, operations managers, etc., HR reps. And they're looking for space to just set up operations so they can get their physical site on the ground. Since we have such an amazing relationship with the Buckeye Chamber of Commerce and Brian Wright, who used to work at West-MEC Southwest Campus, whenever he has a group that comes out there looking for space, they come to see what available space that we have on our campus. It's a way for us to feed back into the economy of our environment and utilize some of that campus space. We've hosted multiple events with Core Power, Nestle, APS, the IEC, Abrazo, and other organizations which are moving out into our area. Last week I had, you know, some of the uppity-ups from Nestle who were coming out, and they were touring our facility, talking about infrastructure and what sort of equipment they're going to have in their spaces, and whether or not they really need a new training center on their space, or if they would be able to use our training centers much like APS does right now. We deliver our monthly newsletter every month to parents and students. I'm pretty proud of that. It's surprisingly hard to get new content for one of those every month. And we've had some intentional practice with our ERP with all stakeholders involved on campus, to include local law enforcement, our new safety person, as well as the Estrella Mountain Community College chief. I don't actually know what the person's title is, but their lead police officer, and some other candidates that in our local area, Buckeye PD, etc., to make sure that all of our systems that are working on our campus are aware and cognizant of what we do in case we have an emergency situation, and that we all know how each other is going to react. That's the last time we want chaos. Some of the opportunities that we have at the campus are we have two programs that had traditionally had barriers to certification, either the nationally low pass rates or age requirements. I'm specifically talking about IT security and pharmacy. And we've recently found a way to get our pharmacy students to take a test prior to exiting the campus, which is just a godsend for those students, because once they leave, it's hard to rein them back in.
Regardless of their age?
Regardless of their age. They just have to be a completer. The other one, I could be wrong on that one. Don't cite me on that one. Now that I think about it, it sounds like, oh, I might have just misquoted that one. And then the IT security was the national low pass rate and some of the way that we can move around that. We've had business partners, opportunities exist with multiple companies moving into the area to develop some level of partnership. I've had Nestle out at the site 3 or 4 times at this point, doing tours and interacting with us on the equipment, the training site, and making sure that when they get out there, we are aligned in what the equipment and training that we have with what they're going to do on our site. It's actually kind of a funny conversation. When I talk about other intense partnerships we have at Southwest, such as APS, you see a little jealousy in their eye, like they want their name to be the people that we're talking about, and it's kind of nice to be, needed at that level. Core Power, we're hosting, space for their construction company to build their facility, and they've been engaging us since they decided to move into Arizona. So they are early adopters, and I expect that to grow. Abrazo, we recently hosted a tour for the CEO of one of the Abrazo sites, and they are building a Trauma One center as well as Banner right in our area, and there is going to be a lot of opportunity within that group. Some of the things that we are doing or at least we're talking about, is creating an employee recognition system on our campus, for us to just recognize our employees and how we can do that. We're constantly having conversation about employee well-being, just to make sure that Southwest Campus is South Best Campus and they want to be at work. So it's a regular conversation that we have. Building a safe environment. On Southwest Campus, there are 5 learning systems that are happening. We're blending high school, adult education, 2 community colleges, some business partners, and 2 long-term lease operations on the campus at any given day, which means we have a lot of transitory populations. It was actually pretty fun to watch the new safety director's eyes start to twitch as I was talking about all the things that happen on this campus. But we negotiate it. We make sure that we have good communication and we're solid in our plans. And community connections, we continue to develop monthly content for our newsletter, and we're formalizing that process to make sure that it continues and exists. I tried to minimize it to things that I thought were unique to Southwest Campus, knowing that I was going to be last with the South Best. With that being said, I would love to stand for questions.
The growth out there is absolutely,
It's incredible.
unbelievable.
I'm curious on the space. You said they keep coming. How long do they come for? Because you don't have a ton of space.
Correct.
And do they lease it, or how does that work?
So it's different for different organizations. Right now, Yates Construction, which is the builder for Core Power, they are leasing, I don't remember the name of I think it was our business industry room that was designed to host, I think initially APS, as a classroom space. It's right next to the edge of our campus, so it's easy for them to get in and out of. They're leasing it for 4 months. So they have their own access, their own codes, they come and go in that space. Another one is the Employee Bridge, which is, they have a subsidiary name, but Employee Bridge is the host that leases it for us. There's 2 employees that come in and utilize an office space that's next to our career services coach and our career center. And they are a hiring concern, and they're hiring right now for the Nestle's, the Core Power. I think they're actually currently hiring for Funco, that manufacturing facility that does bobbleheads. And that's a good one for us because putting them right next to our career coach allows them to have conversations So if they're looking for employees, we might
want
have
that
some.
one?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We can use that to provide opportunities for our students. But yes, we are running out of
I was
space.
to
That,
say, you still have a finite amount of space, so appreciate Buckeye sending everybody, but
correct.
you can't do everything.
And Estrella is there as well.
And Estrella Mountain, and Estrella Mountain has come to us a few times to talk about, can they expand their use on our campus and what might that look like? And we've recently had some conversations, Dr. Spurgeon and I, on we're getting to a point where with the opportunities that we have for campus utilization, we need to start making decisions about what they're going to be, because we're going to run out of space. And it's now turning into a game of, can we optimize our space usage throughout the day, which we're exploring as well by doing, we tested moving one of our programs, hairstyling, to a little earlier in the day to see if the market would bear it. And we've done that with an adult IT security as well. And we have enrollment, so it looks like we can.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So, and Ms. Medina, I'm sorry I left momentarily during your presentation, but first of all, to all administrators and to Dr. Spurgis, thank you for the update. But I have I want to go in a different direction. I'm glad you have the challenges, opportunities, and I think all four of you have kind of alluded to it. But it's certainly an objective truth that over the last 2 years, we've seen significant student achievement drops and increasing gaps. I think that's both true at K-12, and I see it directly in post-secondary in classes I teach. So what I would like to know, and I guess Dr. Spurgeon, for your staff and for the administrators, is how is that spilled over briefly, and I don't expect you to answer it tonight, but how is that spilled over into our CTE programs? I mean, more broadly, is it significant? Is it, is it kind of medium? Is there a lot of variance? That's number one. Number two, if it is significant, what are we doing about it? And what should we do about it? Because it exists. And number three, I guess, is how would you advise the board? What can the board do to help you? Because I think it simply is an objective truth. And even if we're losing 10% or 15% more students because of the significant learning loss and gaps, that's no good. That's no good for our state. That's no good for our country. So it's an ask, Dr. Spurgeon. I think it doesn't need to be an extensive report, but I think, we're innovators and we want to be the best. So I think we need to, take it head on.
I can speak to some of that right now.
Okay.
Some of our data has been very consistent. We still see that we still have high achievement in credentials. We still have high achievement in our test scores. Some of the conversation we're having on the campus, however, is when we returned from the pandemic, everybody was happy to come back, and there was that initial euphoria of everybody's back in the classroom. But what we found is that there was a gap, and almost it was like students forgot how to be students in a classroom. And there were some significant classroom management challenges that incurred that we had to talk through amongst staff and figure out how to just get kids back, used to being high school students again, and in an open area where we want them to be hands-on. And we were not necessarily cognizant that that was gonna happen. So I do think that there were some, performance gaps, and I think our teachers sensed them and jumped on them pretty quickly. I don't know that we've had, at least I haven't seen, as significant an impact at Southwest Campus, but I do know that my staff reports a lot more classroom management issues than we've previously seen.
Okay. So that's interesting, and I would actually empirically say that I've seen the same thing in my classrooms. So
I would say even in my circle, I've heard from multiple high school principals that this freshman class is the most poorly behaved and they have more discipline issues than they've ever had before. And they, back to COVID, because they were at home and they just don't know how to behave.
And so I guess, Mr. Chair, and for administrators, Dr. Spurgeon, I think, for me, this is where if there is need for resource to quickly or more efficiently address this, it'd be good to consider bringing this before the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? With that,
Sorry, Mr. K. Sorry. Probably not for you guys. Maybe more for Marilyn or Mr. Cook. I just hung up my new West-MEC posters in my classroom because on my TQIs tomorrow. But
And they come down after Christmas.
oh, I still have ones from 10 years up. They just go in layers. But and I love all of our publications, but I don't know when we go to junior highs or when we have our elementary district events. I don't know how good a job, like we're like, West-MEC's awesome, yay. I would really like to see a poster that said, how to get in West-MEC, decent grades, no discipline issues, attendance, right? Like whatever's on that score sheet, right? And it doesn't have to be the whole poster just down in the corner. I think that would help. That would help as a teacher, right? I talk about like these are things that are going to impact you later in life. But as everyone who's been a teacher in here knows, we sound like peanuts parents to most of our students. And so I say it and I say it and I say it. But if it's on a poster, if it's on the publication that they get early, it's like West-MEC's great, but if you want to get in, dun, 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 dun. I think that's not a magic bullet. It's not going to fix anything, but you would enable teachers out there, satellites and whatnot, to be able to do a better job of telling that story. I know, and I didn't get to it with Shelley, but I'm seeing more in IEP meetings where the counseling department is now, West-MEC would be great for you, but here's the thing. And they go through here's the good, but you gotta, these sorts of things. I think the freshmen don't realize that behavior now impacts later, right? They don't have that. That's not wired. That permanence, that time sense of thing is not there. And so the more we could do to like just kind of, we don't need to beat the drum, just kind of peck at the drum. Like your behavior in 9th grade impacts whether you get in. And that incentivizes better behavior, at least in the satellite programs. And then the same thing can happen in West-MEC when they actually get in. Like your behavior, right, these things impact whether somebody's gonna hire you. There's a little bit of an artificial world happening right now. Had a student in my colleague's class, and the colleague was like, dude, you got 15 tardies and 12 absences. This isn't gonna work later in life. This kid's a junior, and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm late to work all the time. And they don't care. Well, the kid's working across the street at Sonic, and you try to explain to them, like, Sonic is desperate for people. They're not gonna fire you for being late right now, right? Maybe in 5 years, whatever, but like right now, Sonic's not gonna fire you for being late because they can't replace you. Everybody's got a help wanted poster up. But they're not gonna get promoted. They're not gonna be an assistant manager. They're not gonna get a pay raise. They're just gonna be a body. And if you wanna be more than a body, you gotta figure out these professional skills, life skill thing. We just all as a community need to keep beating on that one.
Agreed.
I have to say I went to a presentation for one of the classes recently, and the teacher who was teaching the class said,
Okay, welcome. I'm really excited about all of you being here, but here's the rules. And laid it out right then and there. And this was at orientation. And the father of this student, who happened to be my son, said to me later, I think they're going to learn something there. So, you know, even though what you're saying, it doesn't hurt to say it right up front. This is what I expect. This is what you're going to do. And even if your school isn't going on, you don't have to go to school that day. We might have camp, you know, school at this campus today, and you have to come. So, it's a challenge, but we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
That was great.
All right.
Good report.
Moving on to item 16, Dr. Spurgeon, West-MEC employee retention and compensation discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Straka.
So I'll try to do my best here. I'm still not feeling great, but hopefully you enjoyed as the principals gave we try to do that maybe a couple times a year, because I think it's very good for them to be able to stand up in front of you and kind of give an update on what's going on their campuses. Gives you a good sense of their leadership and where they're moving their campuses to. So let me, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time because everybody's read through this and I've talked to several of you as well, but let me
Just kind of talk you through where this whole thing started for me. So when I saw some open positions, I have talked to several folks. Everybody in this room knows that trying to hire folks right now has been challenging, to say the least, no matter what industry that you're in. And when you take a look at where we are as a CTE organization versus where K-12 organizations might be, they're looking for certificated individuals in English language arts or math or science or social studies. Well, they're having difficulty finding those teachers as well. But you add another layer of complexity to CTE, we have to find those business and industry professionals, which we know for a fact those industries that we're trying to pull from, either A, number one, are looking for folks themselves, or number two, many places pay much higher than what we do in the K-12 field of education. So when I talked with Stephen and with Jared, I said, give me a list of the staffing positions that we didn't fill in 22, 23, and the ones we didn't make for this year, and then who's leaving us this year to know about. So for 22, 23, precision machining, coding, environmental sustainability, medical lab assisting, one person in aviation, and adult education HVAC didn't make this year for 22, 23. Teaching positions that were vacated prior to the start of 22, 23 were veterinary sciences, hairstyling, aviation, adult education welding, adult education HVAC, and adult education aviation. So when I began to see these openings, it dawned on me that if we want to be able to protect what we have at West-MEC, and for me to be able to do what you hired me to do to take us to another level, we're going to have to do something about retention and compensation. And that's just kind of the nature of where we are right now. And so before doing that, you have to ask yourself, do we have the financial ability to be able to do something for our employees? So I began to talk to Tracy Rockwell, who is now our itinerant business official. And we began first to talk about 301 funds. And coming in new to Arizona, I had a little bit of knowledge about 301 funds, and it was given kind of as a little bit of salary as a stipend, and they had to do some certain things in order to earn more performance pay. Well, little did I know how much money we actually had in 301. And so as you've seen the report, you see that we have a very healthy 301 balance. And so I had Dr. Erb reach out and check with a couple of the districts about what do other districts do with their employees as it relates to 301. And I think one of the highest ones we saw was probably Dysart. They're probably jack around 11,000 or plus. And I thought to myself, and maybe this was kind of silly, I was like, why aren't people making more money out of 301? That there's only three things it can be used for. The reason I thought that was because that's not out of M&O. And anytime you have money available and it doesn't come out of your maintenance and operations, it's just like, this is money we ought to be using to boost our salaries to the employees that qualify. So right now for 301, we have about 70 employees in the district that qualify for extra 301 funds. So I thought, okay, about what might that cost us to do X, Y, Z number of dollars to put on the base salary. And keep in mind, it's not really on the base salary, but it's on their base salary because it's paid out in a stipend. So they still get it in the 24 paychecks they would get each year
as a regular salaried individual. So I picked the number of $13,450, which took that stipend to $15,000. And Jack and I began to talk about where does that put us in relationship to where we need to be in other districts. And so it put us somewhere right in the middle in many different categories of where teachers are. Some are a little lower, some might be just a tad bit higher. And so I thought to myself, how much is that gonna cost? Well, that cost per year is gonna be, as you see on your sheet there, $1,638,000. Well, if you look at the bottom of that sheet, we estimate getting in somewhere between $1.5 and $1.6 million every single year for our 301 funding, and that tends to go, it could go up a little bit one year, it could come down, because it's all based on the sales tax and how many students you actually have in the district. But the number that I'm asking for, or would be asking for if this was an item we could vote on, that $1.638 million is pretty close to what we take in every year for 301 dollars. So really, it's kind of a zero-sum game, and that would mean we would barely have to touch what the money that's already in there now. So that was my idea around 301. So then I thought to myself, what does, in my professional opinion, what does it look like for me to take a look at, if we're gonna do one for one employee group, let's take that and do it across all groups to move everybody up, because we have the money to do that now. It's rare that a district can actually say that, yes, we have the money to be able to do that. So when we took that $15,000 across all employee groups, the second thing I thought of, anytime you give a percent raise, it's always been the case that those on the top end of the scale get more than those on the bottom end of the scale. And it's always been the case that the person on the bottom of that scale is no less valuable than the one that's on the top of the scale. So I thought, I'm gonna try this one time, because something I've always wanted to do, just never really had the chance to do it. So we did that across the board, and so I talked to Tracy, and I said, Tracy, this is gonna cost us, if we did it for a full year, it's gonna be about $2.4 million. I said, do we have the money in the budget to be able to do it? She said, absolutely we do. And I said, secondly, is it sustainable? And the answer is yes. So here's what we're looking at. The original proposal called for a retention and a compensation twofold. I wanted to start this in January, or as close to January as we could, because number one, I'm only asking for half of the money for second semester. So for an example of that 75, the 15,000, 7,500 would be for second semester. And then if you stayed with us through the fall, you would get the second half of that money as a retention bonus, or Mr. Straker, what we've talked about, that carrot at the end of the stick of them saying, we're gonna come back. So if you didn't stay, you would have no benefit of being able to do that. So what I would be asking for in this proposal is a straight $15,000 increase across the board. Support staff salaries will be calculated based on 15,000 divided by the 2,080 hours as it relates to an hourly rate, and that's all been put on there for you. You have the current salary schedule, and you have the proposed salary schedule of moving everybody forward. And so my whole thought process behind this was, number one, we've got a funding mechanism that can come out of M&O, which would take care of all of our teachers, our counselors, and our instructional coaches, which doesn't hurt our M&O budget whatsoever. And then the remaining $15,000 for each employee would come out of our M&O budget, which is the $2.4 million. We'd realize half of that this year and the other half next year. And after talking to Tracy, there's no better time in our district that I'm aware of that we have the money to be able to do something big and significant like this. And as each of the principals have talked to you about the retention and the ability to hire the individuals to move forward, because the bottom line is that if we don't do something to be able to keep our teachers in our programs, I can't fulfill the mission that you've hired me to do. And the reason I say that is CJ and I are out talking to business and industry all the time. And so I can't go out there and sell them a bill of goods and not be able to deliver on our promises, because if we're not gonna be able to keep teachers, I can't continue to go out there and promote our programs to expand, to be able to meet Nestle, to be able to meet TSMC, to be able to do that. My other thought was, and everybody around this table knows this, I mean, for us to be able to find an instructor, which I'm hoping we're gonna be able to, for the TSMC piece or the Nestle, they're not gonna come for $50,000 to $65,000. It's just gonna be impossible for us to find someone like that. So my whole thought process, number one, it's like all the storm came together. And I think we have the finances available. I think it's a good, solid plan. I wouldn't be asking if we didn't have the money, because if we didn't, it'd certainly be a lot less than that. And so my thoughts were, let's do something significant to keep West-MEC at a place where it is right now, and to be able to move us forward. And it would also make a statement around us in the communities that we serve, that West-MEC is important enough to hire the best that we can find, to keep them in the classrooms, to provide the programs and services that we've promised our communities that we will provide for them. So that's my narrative speech. You got all the data in front of you, so I'll stand for questions, because I've met with several of you, and then you've been through probably all the pieces of information. So my thought was that we got to do something right now, or something pretty quick. In a previous district of mine, I made a very similar recommendation, and the board didn't take it, and now they're sitting with 60 subs in a classroom and over 107 open positions. So I'm just saying it's important enough now for us to at least think about, consider, and I'll take your thoughts and process around that.
You know, one of the things I've thought about, and, you know, we talked a couple of times about this, is in private industry, I always had subsidized insurance for my family. And if we have this kind of money, I would love to see us subsidize family insurance, because I hear people talking about $1,800 a month for insurance. If we could knock that down to $600 for family, because what they're doing is they're going out to the private industry and buying a plan, and then they have their family deductible of $5,000 or $7,000 plus their personal deductible of a couple of $1,000s. And so at the end of the day, they end up paying more because of multiple deductibles. They'd be under one family deductible of I don't know what it is here, 5,000 or something. But that's what private industry does. And if we want to attract people out of private industry, I would say part of it is really a health insurance subsidy for families and spouses.
Understood. The other thing I was going to mention is when you look at this number for the rest of the staff at 2.4 million, every single year over the last 5 years on average, we carry over $2.1 million that is unspent each and every year. So in and of itself, we're real close to being able to pay for our other staff, as well as look at some other benefits to go along with that, because we're carrying over almost what I'm asking you for, and we still have $9 million of unspent or at least unallocated funding. So we think the money is there in addition to what you're talking about.
Because what I would think is the families that are most struggling with health insurance are the lower paid staff members. Because I think last year, Jack, what was it? 2 people had family plan and 9 people had a spouse or children out of 170. You're telling me only 11 people have a family at West-MEC? I find that incredibly hard to believe.
But here's the other good thing, Mr. Straka, is when you're getting ready to move to another item about the new budget, and through Tracy's leadership and others, our capital funds right now are sitting at $66 million. $66 million, and at least one time during the year, the board can vote to move a part of that money over to our M&O at any time you need that. And so we have the ability to be able to do that, to sustain us, to move us forward. Like you and I have talked about the bonds. There might be a way for us to take a look at moving some of that money over, and I think Jack gave you the information about the bonds. There's some different options there for us, but that money can be used to move over to help in compensation, to help move over for employee benefits. There's other things that we can do with that money. So what I'm saying is we're sitting on a lot of money, and I think we need to make some decisions here pretty soon about what we can do to, number one, attract employees, keep our employees, and make sure that we have employee compensation and benefits that we take care of, as well as taking a look at how we can in the future pay some of those bonds down and or refinance those bonds to put us in a better position when we go back for another bond issue. So we can do those things.
I have one question. Can we even use the 301 funds for health insurance, to subsidize health insurance?
It pays for employee comp.
No. It cannot be used?
No.
Okay.
It's employee benefits. We can't use
Tracy, come over here.
301 to pay for teacher insurance?
Good evening.
This is Tracy Walker, by the way. She's the one
Good to meet all of you and be able to speak in front of you. So that is an option that you do have with Prop 301. You can use it to offset insurance payments. It's not what the district currently does right now, but that is an option.
But it's not part of, like, your benefits package. It's just extra money as if you were doing a stipend.
No, people would subsidize their health insurance if they went through West-MEC.
Correct. You could have the classroom site fund plan written in a manner so that, for instance, the employees that are eligible for the 301, their premium is offset more than the employees that are not eligible for the 301.
By using 301 funds.
Right.
Only those 60 people.
Right.
So the district would do it automatically and not give the employee the money so that they could set that money aside?
Correct. It would be part of the employer portion of it to lower the premium that the employee would pay, right?
So the employee wouldn't receive it in hand or in their account?
No.
Just to offset the cost. So they wouldn't see that, but they would see the lower cost. But the good thing is, again, that does come out of M&O, and I'm always looking for ways not to take it out of M&O.
Yeah, we can always look at benefits. We do that every year anyhow.
Right. Exactly.
do it.
Mr. Chairman. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I did have one question. I mean, this money has been accumulating for a while, and I'm fairly new to the board, so, and there's $30 million in this pot. My question is, why do we have $30 million set aside? Was there a specific purpose for that $30 million? Is there a reason why we've been saving all that money?
When we've been collecting the money, because as it was going up, I've asked previous years, and we were always told that we can only use it for there were three things: employee development, that were teachers that were eligible, so that group, employee development, the performance at the end of the year, and there was one other thing, and I can't remember what it was.
As it relates to, there's like menu items that you can define and then there's also a component of the evaluation process. So I'll have Tracy talk us through, because that changed a little bit not too long ago. Tracy?
I was making sure I didn't move technology for holding them to get upset with me. So 301 has been around since 1999 when it was voted in, and
Sales tax.
sales tax, yes, 6 cents on the dollar. So there are three components, right? We have heard a lot about there has to be 20% that goes to the teacher's base pay. Whether you put it in the salary or you put it in the base pay, it didn't matter as long as it went to teachers. Fund 12 was for what we refer to as your menu items, where the classroom site fund plan made by the district, the employees that are eligible for it, determine what evaluation items you're gonna use that are above and beyond your normal evaluation tool. So CTSOs, work-based learning, that type of a thing, for a CTED. The third bucket was to give enticement for maintaining your district's evaluation goals. And in that, a district could determine a percentage of how much they were gonna give to each teacher based on the goals that they met, or they could do a flat dollar amount. It came down to how the district employees wrote the plan. So there are a lot of options, and like Dr. Spurgeon mentioned, 2 years ago, the legislature changed the appearance of Proposition 301, because in 2018, the voters had to approve to continue the referendum or let it sunset, meaning classroom site fund was gone. Well, the voters approved for it, so we're good for another 20 years, but within that, we still have the same reporting requirements for it, but it's all under one fund now. You don't have to have the three separate buckets. And it also opened up the door for instructors, certificated employees that have direct instructional interaction with students, counselors, instructional coaches, those types of things.
So that's where the change came in, where now we have a much more latitude in their ability to be able to use those 301 funds for sure.
This is probably the original. I found this in the Arizona Office of the Auditor General from 2002. It has those three.
Yep.
And it has the menu items there, the menu options.
Right.
Other questions?
So that's what the money is to be used for.
Exactly.
And it sounds like they expanded the box.
Right.
No other questions, that's all I have, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
First question from Dr. Erb. Do all the board members have the revised? They don't. I asked Commissioner Dr. Spurgeon if I could talk with Tracy and Dr. Erb about the original that went out, because I think there were some changes that would make it easier to see and easier to understand and easier to see where we are at. And many of you know I've been on the board, 7, 8 years now? I'm always talking about how good we are, but we don't follow it up with the proper salaries and benefits for people. We hired Dr. Spurgeon because we thought he was the right person for the job. I gotta tell you, 90-some% of the time, I am never for across-the-board flat raises. Now, because I'm always afraid of creating mediocrity. I believe in rewarding people that move on up and letting them be rewarded. But in this case, we have been so awry for so many years. Why do we want to keep punishing the staff? And I'm not trying to play to the staff. Why do we want to do that? I wish there was a action item or we could vote on this tonight, because frankly, I think Dr. Spurgeon, Dr. Erb, and Miss, is it Rockwell, did a terrific job of shedding light on where we're at. Now, we sit here and we listen to, is Thome? Talk about one of our great programs. We listen to our campus administrators talking about how fabulous. We receive awards like Cognia, and we're so proud, and we should be. We should take care of them. There's no need not to do this. There's no need not to do this and look at benefits. There's no need not to look at this and then make some corrections. Now, I'll admit that you can go through this line of all the people here and go down to line 17 and say, oh, the person that washes the windshield of the board members at school district XYZ is $1 different. What difference does that make? If you look at the whole, the comparisons, and I asked Dr. Erb, I'd like to put even on there. That's a fair comparison. I don't want to read these. I don't want to insult you. But we're low. We're way low. Why don't we do something about it? Now, I really wish it were an action item tonight, because I just have a feeling it could pass. But what I'd like to do is, I see we have a new person here tonight. I'd like to have them have this information, and the other person, I don't know if they're here or not, have this information.
Yeah, another meeting, we swore him in at 3.
Yeah, we swore him at 3.
I would like to have them have this information well in advance of the next meeting, not to get it on the Wednesday before and then. But I'd like to see an action item on as soon as possible. You want to hold a Zoom meeting before the end of the year, I'm okay. But if not, I'd like to see it on the January.
So we can discuss that in future agenda items. We're crossing the line. We can talk about January at future agenda items, but we can talk about this.
I'll talk about it then, I'm not bashful.
You're welcome to talk about the topic.
Putting this together, as did Ms. Rockwell.
Any other questions for Dr. Spurgeon?
Yes, I have another question, Dr. Spurgeon. So this $15,000 increase, we all know this is all based on sales tax, so obviously it fluctuates how much we have coming in year after year. Sometimes maybe higher, sometimes maybe lower. Clearly I'm assuming that's not a guaranteed $15,000 every year, or is this just a one time and then that would be?
It would actually be built into the salary schedule moving forward through the rest of the time. It would be a reoccurring expense, yes.
Okay, so it's not something that the board votes on year after year, like on the amount or anything like that?
Well,
Because it's a
there could be
stipend, you would have to vote on it each year and approve it each year.
Yeah.
Plus, we'd only be spending what we take in, we still got the 30 million.
Yeah, exactly. So there's still 30 plus million.
And it's sustainable for at least 10 years. That's at least.
Well, I was
But,
running
you know,
my math and.
Yeah, but with the state, there's no guarantee on anything.
Yeah. Yeah, assuming we don't hire a single person from here till eternity and we don't get another cent from sales tax, we basically have a 15-year emergency fund for this $15,000 increase.
At least.
Mm-hmm. But obviously that's not gonna happen because this sunsets in 2041.
2038. I think we'll all be done off the board.
Yeah. Oh, I got that off of the governor's website.
Right. But it's sustainable for a number of years to come, which is in a better position. The other thing I didn't mention, and then I'll be quiet about this, is I was talking to Tracy, and it was a little surprising that most districts spend a very large portion of their maintenance and operation budget on salaries and benefits. On average, here in the Phoenix area is 87%. We spend 67% of our maintenance and operation budgets on our salaries and benefits.
And I don't agree with 87.
Maybe frugal, but it's time to change.
Yes.
just shows that we're down and we should consider doing something, for sure.
Because right now it looks like we're, and this is for the teachers, counselors, and coaches. The numbers that you gave us looks like right now we're only using 25% of the annual income we get from the 301 fund.
Yeah, I think it's 400 and something, and we get between 1.5 and 1.6.
And for
5%.
everybody else, that would come out of the M&O.
Yes.
And again, keep in mind that we, on average, have carried over about $2.1 million of unspent or unencumbered funds each and every year, which almost covers the full amount of that $2.4 million that would take to be able to move forward. Plus, there's $9 million in our what I call a savings account, but it's $9 million that's not committed or unencumbered money that we have in our account right now. So I just think we're in the best position that this board's probably ever been in as it relates to really doing something nice for the people that take care of us in our programs. Tracy, you can tell them, can we sustain it, yes or no?
For the M&O, definitely
Yeah.
you can. For a couple, I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't say, based on support from the legislature, because we've all been in this industry long enough that we have seen how things move around, definitely. But that's when you make your adjustments, when that year happens, just like every other district does.
Mr. Ramirez, anything else?
One thing I was looking at is we have $3,000 here tagged for performance pay, and I agree with Mr. Miglerino. I'm more comfortable with performance pay than just a across the board amount, but being what the numbers are, I see an argument for both.
Yeah, once in a rare, I agree with you. I've done budgets and did negotiations for a year. Most of the time, I don't agree, 90-some% of the time. But this time, it makes sense. We selected Dr. Spurgeon as the leader. He came to us with a good plan. I would like to see the board approve it.
What was it? The thing I was gonna add is the $3,000 performance. I'd like to incentivize that a little bit more. We may or may not agree on the $15,000, but I would like to consider increasing the $3,000 performance pay.
So just to keep with transparency, since this is on the classroom site fund plan, the plan has to actually be written by a classroom site fund committee, which includes some of the employees that are eligible to receive it, hopefully with a financial leader so that they can help them with the number directions. Then 70% of the employees that are eligible, a minimum of 70% of those employees, have to vote and approve for that plan before it's brought to the board for board consideration. The governing board doesn't have the authority to determine the amounts. They can make recommendations and say, hey, CSF committee, why don't you consider this? And then the committee needs to do that, put the plan together, get the eligible body to vote and approve it, and then it becomes enacted on for the next fiscal year.
One of the things I think that, one of the reasons we're having a problem with competitiveness is we have one range for teachers. We really need to break that out to multiple ones. An aviation instructor is not a precision machine instructor, and those industries are different. And we need to understand what do they look like? Because we can't, and that's going back to your 15,000 across the board. I think there are some industries like aviation, it might need to be 30,000. And there may be industries that we are already above market. And we should do it in a way that we need to be able to recruit teachers. The number one thing here is I don't want to put 15,000 across the board and then say, we still can't recruit teachers. This needs to solve that problem. If we're not going to solve that problem, this doesn't solve the problem.
Well, the thing that I recommended, or we talked about, is, I don't know, let's say we have 50 careers. You take maybe the 10 hardest, and you put them here, and then you can work on down. And I agree, we've got to do it.
And I think part of it is insurance.
We can add insurance in there too, I don't care, that's fine. but we've
Any
got-
more
we've
questions,
got to
because
compete.
this was a discussion, any more questions for Dr. Spurgeon?
Jack, how long does it typically take for the group to be able to develop the plan and?
Well, Stephen's here. It won't take very long. Stevens,
So we can do that between now and if you decide.
We'll work on it tonight.
Stephen meets, Mr. Welch meets with all of the staff on a yearly basis. You as a board get to see the plan. It's been usually in June when it's brought forward. If the board makes this an agenda item in January, then we would get the teacher groups together, Stephen would, talk to them about what we talked about tonight, increasing the performance-based stipend. Do we want to increase the work-based learning stipend? Then that group votes on it, agrees on it, and then we bring it back to the board.
And benefits as well, could be a part of that conversation.
Benefits plus looking at
Yes, all that,
the
all that.
availability of, the different.
So if it becomes an
jobs.
agenda item in January, we can bring that plan back for you to consider, including those components that you spoke about tonight.
But yes, the plan has to be brought back as was
interesting.
presented to you. But it can be done, it doesn't have to be in June. You can revise your plan at any time.
Thank you for the questions.
All right, Ms. Rockwell, I think you're back.
I figured I would just.
This is a point of order because I was asked the question, do we need a public hearing? And just for everyone's point of order, Dee checked into it. We don't need a public hearing because we're not going above our capacity. So we can just do a budget revision. And so that's why we're going without the public hearing for everybody's information.
Revision. That's the word. Okay.
All right.
Thank you again for allowing me to come and talk with you. So the first two items are actually for revision of documents, financial documents that are for fiscal year '22. And the first item is actually revising the FY '22 expenditure budget so that the district can capture unclaimed budget capacity for M&O and capital funds, to then be able to move that into fiscal year '23, which will be the last financial document that I will talk to you about. So the first item is for the governing board to approve the revision of FY '22, adding that capacity in to that document, and then we'll move on to the next one. So expenses did not change at all from the AFR. All this revision shows is that additional capacity.
Mr. Chair, I'll get us started. I move the revision.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, moved by Reno, seconded by Dr. Pingarelli. Any other question? Okay. You're not giving yourself much time. You're saying that you're going to update the website by tomorrow.
Yep.
You have all the documents ready to go.
I do. And it's not, having done it for enough time, it's not a lot of work anymore.
And by law, these all have to be taken care of by the end of this month.
Actually, the board would, yes, that's correct. The board has to approve this. Well, so this revision is actually, and the AFR revision, was actually a special request that the district did with the Department of Education to essentially reopen last fiscal year and revise these documents. So this revision is, unbeknownst to the way it looks on the page or anything you find on the Auditor General's, because this is what is referred to as an ARS 15915, revising prior year documents for the benefit of capturing capacity. So that doesn't have the deadline of the end of the month, but when we get to the third item, the revision of the 2023 budget, that has to be done no later than December 15th and then uploaded to the ADE no later than December 18th. So, yeah.
All right, so item number 17 on the agenda, it's been Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Wiley? Aye. All right, any opposed? All right. Item number 18.
Okay, so
Keep going.
this will actually give a little more information as to how I came about needing to revise the expenditure budget in preparing the 2022 AFR that you approved during the October meeting, which is required by October 15. I had discovered that lack of capacity added into your FY22. So knowing the deadline of the AFR, I got that done, and working with Dr. Erb and Dr. Spurgeon, letting them know, hey, by the way, I want to do this for the district too. I believe the district wants it as well too. And they both agreed, so we moved forward with revising that. But that being said, adding the budget to the final expenditure budget in 22 gave us the opportunity to add it and revise the FY22 annual financial report. So all of the expenses and the revenue are the same as what you approved in October. Your difference is what your budget limits are, because those reflect on the AFR as well too. Your AFR is really a profit and loss statement, gives you your revenue, your expense, and what you budgeted. So that was how the first item came up and why we need to revise and ask for approval on the second item. And that will be uploaded tomorrow as well too, if it's approved tonight.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to move it, and I've got I'll move that we do the revised AFR. Get a second, then I have a couple of comments.
Okay, so you're moving item number 18. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kay. Comments?
With Dr. Spurgeon's permission, I talked with Tracy, because I want to be these numbers need to be right. They just have to be right. So I said to her, now, have you checked with our auditors, Heinfield and Meach? And she said that she had. So not only has she looked at the numbers, but Heinfield and Meach, our auditors, have looked at the numbers. So the increased capacity and everything is there. So I feel comfortable voting on it, and I wanted you all to know that. And she was incredibly, I didn't know her. I've been around only 44 years in Arizona. But for whatever reason, I've never met Tracy Rockwell. But she comes incredibly recommended with incredible skills. And so I would like to see us approve this motion to revise the AFR.
Tracy, did you give them the number of capacity that you found?
No, not yet, but I will do that as well too, Dr. Spurgeon. But I wanted to expand on what I shared with Mr. Migliorino on the phone call, was that when he asked me about the auditors looking at this, while the audit firm was on site doing their final field work, I had already started to prepare these revised documents in the hope and anticipation that Dr. Spurgeon and Dr. Erb would go along with me wanting to revise them. So having given the audit firm the initial annual financial report, I shared with the audit partner, Eric Taylor, what I was revising to. I'm very much an advocate of second set of eyes because I make mistakes every day. Sometimes it's a hard pill for me to swallow the mistake I do make, but I want to be transparent. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't overlooking something. So I was able to let Mr. Migliorino know that other people had looked at this as well, besides just me working in isolation. And to answer Dr. Spurgeon, the capacity that is being recovered is $907,000 for M&O and just shy of $7 million for your capital. Now, as that gets tied into FY23, when we get to that voting item, I'll let you know what the additional carry forward capacity is for the current fiscal year. But in order to bring that additional capacity into FY23, the 22 revised budget and the 22 AFR revision have to be approved.
All right. Any more questions, comments? Call for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item number 19, let's keep this going.
So the whole reason to do a December revision is twofold. One is something that Mr. Migliorino referred to, and you did as well too, Mr. Straka, about do we have to do a public hearing because we've exceeded our budget? Some districts will get that nice little letter from ADE when they do their reconciliation that you are over budget in your calculations, not what you spent, but your calculations. Or I prefer doing a December revision regardless, because I just finished my prior year. I have true actual numbers of what I'm carrying forward, because we have this beautiful thing in school finance called an encumbrance period. Haven't found a way to pay my own bills that way, but I will tell you the secret if I find it. So bringing in the assumption, and truly it was an assumption that the board would approve the revision of the 22 expenditure budget and the 22 AFR. I built that carry forward into the calculations for the district to have for this December revision. So if you look at the cover page of your FY23 expenditure budget, the cover page gives you a really nice little snapshot. And if you compare that to either the 22 expenditure budget or the 22 AFR, I want you to notice that your M&O budget last year was $33 million. With the $900,000 and the additional carry forward and the reconciliation of the ADM, you now have a M&O general fund of, I'll say 43 million, because it's 42,965,000, and I like to round up. And then your capital, went from 56 million to 66 million, because we brought forward the just shy of 7 million along with additional carry forward due to calculations and prior year expenditures, or lack of expenditures, I should say.
Move the revised budget for 22-23.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I do have one discussion point.
Yes, sir.
So, I was the individual that did request, if we were doing or if we had to do a public hearing or not. So I had called the chairman, and I know that we had a check on that legally, and it's not required, and that's fine. But in the collective 16 years of me, it would be 14 years of me going to board meetings, even when it wasn't required, we typically do it. And my only comment to the board is that we, as a board, we are a political body responsible to our constituents and our taxpayers. Just because we don't have to do it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And I would say in that 14 years, maybe there's been half a dozen people. I think it's just deference to respect to our constituents that we consider doing it always in the future. That is my comment.
So I would say, one of the reasons we would have had to drop it from the agenda, it had to be done by December. But I'll say, I don't plan on being chairman next year, so whoever's the chairman, that would be up to them to always have a public hearing.
And I would say, I did understand the requirement, Mr. Chairman, the 24 hours, so I was completely on board with it. I just say that I think it's just, we should always...
Point taken. I hadn't noticed it because I don't think about the public hearing.
I did not either, and I had looked at the agenda for several days earlier, and I said, boy, I scratched my head, I'm going over it again today, where is it? So, and that's why I called Mr. Chairman.
So, and if I can expand on that, so Dee gets the pleasure of making sure that the agenda that the governing board is going to be presenting is posted within 24 hours of the board meeting. The public hearing for a school financial document has to be 10 days prior to the board meeting, and it has to illustrate the completed document. And I will be very honest, because I probably did this once or twice in my life, and Mr. Migliorino probably has as well too, is if we didn't have to revise because of being over budget, being budgeted over budget, we wouldn't always do the public hearing because we didn't have to, because we didn't have the document done. So just to let you know that the public hearing document for school finance has to be 10 business days before the board meeting, right?
So it should have been out December 4th.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you are up on reconciling your budget, as school business officials should be, it's not shouldn't be an issue.
That's right.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, this is the 22-23 budget revision, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Moving on to future agenda items. Mr. Miclerino.
I would like to see Dr. Spurgeon's plan brought back, and with his permission, I would like to have him ask Jack to send the revised one out so you can see some other districts that we compare to. And also statements like, you know, the compensation's sustainable for at least 10 years. I mean, that's gonna be important, but I'd like to see it brought back, and I'd like to see all of us have the revision. Thank you.
301 meetings.
Any other future agenda items?
Mr. Strike, I did want to make the board aware that I plan on doing an update on my board goals in January, like we kind of did last time. But this time, we're probably going to do it in closed session because we'll have 2 new board members. I'll just take all that same information, probably take about 25 or 30 minutes, and then do that with all the board members to give you a January update.
Yeah, I asked, we're midway through the year, we should have a mid-year review of the superintendent on the goals. And we always did that with Mr. Donovan, and it kind of helps us when we get, and with new board members, it will help bring them up to speed on where the district's headed, so that will be an exec session.
Well, when do we approve this, the district, the new maps? Or?
Oh, yeah.
It'll be in January, I believe.
Jack, we're doing district maps and redistricting in January.
We provided you at your seats a copy of our current boundaries and then 2 maps. And Dr. Pendarelli, I will email those to you tomorrow electronically. There are 2 maps of what you received in the other room. Mrs. Wiley and Mr. Straka were looking at them earlier. You want to take a look at the 2 maps before you leave tonight?
I would like to.
We'll have Doug Peterson come and review those maps with you. This is a board recommendation. It's not an administrative recommendation. He will come forward, bring you all the census information, answer any of the questions, and then you'll have time to give him some direction if you want them modified or if you want any of the lines changed as you look at them, and then he can revise them if there is, and then we can bring them back to the board in either February or March for approval.
That item also need to be the one that says for discussion and possible action, so if they see things are fine, and vote on it in
They want to,
January.
yes, you could, if you think they're balanced out with the census and trying to stay within that 10%, and you like where the lines have been drawn, then yes, you could consider voting it in January.
All right.
Okay.
And they're still in there now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Go down to mine.
Join us or not?
I can't make out my district here.
Is there blank on here?
Yeah, I think you made that. You already did it.
On the big map there.
Okay.
Natterburg's in, the blank there is still county line. Natterburg's included in there.
Okay. All right, anything else? Mr. Kaltenbach, item 22.
You think? I move we adjourn.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Stand adjourned at 7:19.